Morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I'd like to call the Safety, Economic Development, and Government Affairs Committee to order. At this time, I'd like to note that we do have a very full agenda today. We're expecting a lot of discussion on different items, so we will try to get through everything as quickly as possible. But if we are not able to finish within our allotted time period, we will recess the meeting and continue on Thursday. Resolution 11-339 is our agenda item number 3, and this relates to the 2012 Hawaii State Association of Counties legislative package. At this time, I'm going to defer to our representative to HSAC. I'm sorry. We're actually going to be deferring this until after agenda item number 4. We've got a few members as well as people who would like to testify in this measure that are en route. So we're going to defer this until after agenda item number 4. Any objections to this, members? Thank you. Okay, we're going to now move back to agenda item number 3, which is Resolution 11-339 relating to the 2012 Hawaii State Association of Counties legislative package. Before we begin, I want to inform the public of a disclosure from Councilmember Garcia relating to this resolution. This states that the package of measures includes a proposal that addresses GMO foods with an overabundance of caution. I disclose that I am Executive Director of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce, and its membership includes firms that are involved in GMO foods. This time I'd like to defer to Councilmember Chang, our representative to the Hawaii State Association of Counties, to give us a brief introduction into this package.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As you know, the City and County of Honolulu is a member of the Hawaii State Association of Counties, and every year what HSAC does is it puts together a legislative package of several measures that it would like our friends across the street of the legislature to consider. The items that we're considering today have been submitted by all 4 counties, including the City and County of Honolulu, and if all of them must pass all the 4 county councils in Hawaii to be included in the official package that gets presented to the legislature in January. So if certain measures are not approved by this committee and by this council, they will not be considered by HSAC for presentation to the full legislature. And I won't go into the details of each one, but I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia, at this time I'll recognize you for your proposed CD1.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do appreciate the fact that you verbally announced my disclosure, and I will say that I am going to propose this without having consulted with any of the stakeholders, including the Chamber, so I make the decision on my own. Madam Chair, I propose a CD1 to this measure that would remove the GMO bill from this legislation.
Okay. Council Chair Martin.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I know that Councilmember Garcia did mention his disclosure, and actually he is submitting this particular CD1 on my behalf, recognizing he is in a difficult position, although I know where his support lies. But I did draft the CD1. I'm recommending that be taken out, primarily for the reasons that that particular industry is already heavily regulated at the federal level. And I am not one for overregulation. I'm sure Councilmember Chang, who has served us well on this council in terms of HSAC, could share some of his insights as to why the Maui County felt that there was a necessity. But based on the information I have from my own research and from what I understand of the industry, I just do not feel that it's essential that we propose another more regulatory measure that would be more of a burden on this particular industry, and I don't think that it'd be something that really is a necessity at this point in time. So Although I don't have a vote on this particular committee, I'm hoping that CD1 does move forward. If not, I will be introducing it on the floor should this pass out today as a FD1 amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Chair. Okay, at this time, we have two registered speakers. First, I'd like to call up Cindy Goldstein from Pioneer Hybrid. Cindy here.
Stuck in traffic.
Okay, Alan Takemoto from Monsanto, Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair Gabbard, members of the committee. My name is Alan Takemoto. I'm the Community Affairs Manager for Monsanto, Hawaii. And besides me is Jerry Dill. He's our lead for our multi-season program that is also focuses on the technology side of our company. We have approximately 3 farm sites here on Oahu, about 350 employees on a regular basis. We also are in the process of hiring another 100 seasonal workers during our winter season. We also have farms on Maui and Molokai. So in total, we have about close to 1,000 employees statewide. So with that, we strongly oppose the item number 3, Exhibit C, within Resolution 11-339 that mandates the labeling of GMO foods, and respectfully request that this be removed from the 2012 HSAC legislative package. The requirements to label a genetically modified crop makes a false or negative assumption that a genetically engineered crop is somehow inferior to conventional or organic crops. Federal research and regulatory agencies have conducted years of studies that show no health or safety concerns that would call for the labeling of genetically modified crops. Quite the contrary, this research has found crops currently available from biotechnology to be as safe as those produced via other more conventional methods. Federal law already requires accurate food labeling that provides information relevant to health, safety, and nutrition of all food products sold in the United States. The FDA establishes uniform labeling requirements to be consistent with consumer protection and commerce on a nationwide basis. It would be difficult and nearly impossible for state and federal regulators to inspect and test all products being sold or distributed in the state. Approximately 85% of our food products are imported into the state of Hawaii. Hawaii's farming community, specifically the papaya industry, will also be placed at a competitive disadvantage to imported products. The papaya industry relied on this technology and saved the industry from complete devastation due to the ring spot virus. This labeling system will cause an economic hardship on our local farmers, wholesalers, distributors, and retailers. It will also make it difficult for national and international businesses that import into the state to do business with our local economy. The state will need to seek additional funding to train and hire additional inspectors and specialists. So with that said, we respectfully ask that item number 3 be removed from this resolution. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Again, I have Dr. Jerry Dill beside me that can answer any of your technical questions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, members? Councilmember Harimoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we do have an expert here, I think I'll ask. I did read through most of the testimony here, and I think pretty consistent saying that there is no health or safety related issues. So while scientist is here, let me just get that on record. So is there any research, scientific research, that shows any hint of any health or safety issues?
The technology has been in the marketplace since the mid-1990s. Literally trillions of meals have been served since that time without a single health issue being related to a GMO product. It takes approximately 10 years and over $100 million to put one of these these technologies into the marketplace, they are governed by similar regulations for pharmaceuticals. So it's a very extensive testing policy that runs from allergenicity all the way through acute and dermal toxicity studies that range at the full gambit as you would find for a pharmaceutical. So that's the level of technical regulation that occurs with these technologies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Mr. Takimoto, I'm wondering if you can speak in a little bit more detail about something you alluded to in the effects on imports and people importing, as well as to our local farmers. I understand pretty clearly about what Monsanto is doing and how many people you employ, but I'm wondering what you see or the impact being on other small businesses and kind of more of our smaller local farmers.
Okay, I think from the business standpoint, because Hawaii would be separated and basically have a customized labeling requirement if this should pass, international and national companies importing into the state would have to consider that additional cost and who's going to bear that cost. Secondly, the state, and whether it's the private sector or the public sector, is going to have to decide who's going to be trained and informed about how to implement that labeling inspection program. So I think it'll go through a whole rigors of requirements, both to the business sector and the public sector, on how they're going to regulate this. A lot of retailers are not familiar with the various products that go into like, let's say, a processed canned food. So that's going to be a challenge in itself. In terms of the farmers, any other fruit that comes into this state does not have the requirement of having a label. And the label, we look at it as something that will bring on a concern unjustifiably, but it just has that negative connotation. So the farmer, the local farmer, if this bill should pass, will have to put that label, and he's going to have to compete with fruit coming into the state.
I think there's a strong argument to be made for those who look at this just as a matter of education and people knowing what they're buying and what they're feeding to their families, and stating that it's simply genetically engineered or genetically modified. You see it as a negative connotation versus just a matter of people knowing, organic versus what properties went into the growth of the food.
I hear what you're saying, and I think some of the labeling issues, and I know you folks have another labeling bill, a resolution as part of this thing too. Labeling can be used in many different facets, and one is a marketing tool, and as well as an informational tool as well. If it's health and safety and it's been proven, then sure, it should be labeled as such as cigarettes and things like that. But when it comes down to other marketing aspects, it's the organic industry has done a great job in promoting their products, and I'm wholeheartedly supporting them labeling their items of organic, because I think that's a good product. So I think you can look at it in many ways, both educationally and as well as negatively.
And then the last question I had was you touched on imports. And I think, I've spoken to you previously, and you had mentioned some of the impacts on imports or processed or packaged foods where the source may not be clear or known. If you could speak to that point.
Well, when we look at processed foods or processed canned foods, there's many different sources where that product may come from. And I'm not familiar with that area, but I would think that the distributors and wholesalers and retailers would be a little nervous about this particular legislation, because they're going to be having to be informed of what the contents and where that content is coming from. in order to comply with a label that says it has genetically modified technologies in that brand. So I just think that the federal level that's where it is best to be regulated, because it's more of a uniform, and they have the resources to look at this issue. So if the federal government says yes, we should be doing this, then I think the whole 50 states should comply with that. But for a state to ask for a customized only because to have this on the label, then that's a concern.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councilmember Cachola.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question, but the definition of genetically engineered material. Number 2, an organism made through sexual or asexual reproduction or both. What do you mean by that?
So there are two ways of propagating plants. Sexual reproduction for plants usually denotes making a seed, and then the seed being planted in the ground. Asexual reproduction goes to cloning or taking a plant part, like a bud or a stem, and reproducing the plant that way.
So that's about relating to plants rather than animals.
Correct.
How did they come up with sexual or asexual? Is there any better term than that?
That's traditionally. I mean, plants are male and female in their reproductive parts as well.
Explain to me later on in the how
Certainly.
how they connect. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Not. Thank you very much. Okay, we have no registered testifiers at this time. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this measure, please come forward.
Thank you. As a consumer...
Please state your name for the record.
Sorry, it's my first time. My name is Jamie Baldwin. As a consumer here in Hawaii, I have very, very deep moral and ethical concerns with this. Regardless of the perceived consequences due to the negative connotation of GMO, I believe that consumers deserve the right to make informed decisions about what they're purchasing. And we shouldn't be putting the welfare of a huge business over the transparency that consumers deserve. And I think that is really just the bottom line. I don't really have anything else to say other than, as regular people, we deserve to know what we're buying. So, and it's not just health concerns, right? There's serious other moral and ethical issues that would stop people from buying genetically modified foods. So that's all.
Thank you. Any questions, members? No. Thank you very much for your testimony. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Zulma Aguiar. I have been doing a lot of reading since I was in college at UCSD, and I remember that Monsanto has done some things in other communities other than the United States, like India, and they sort of are such a big farmer, so to speak, that they eliminate competition of small farmers and local farmers. And I wish they would answer questions how their farms are really impacting local Hawaiian farmers. And, I know that their interests are, like they said, costs. They're really worried about the cost of the labeling. And I'm just really sad to hear that a company so powerful and so rich, really their ultimate concern is costs and money, when this, food obviously affects human beings and lives and water supplies. And eventually they own water supplies and, don't allow others to use them. I mean, I've heard of ridiculous things happening in India and small communities that, they'll genetically modify a seed and then eventually sell it back to them. If by any chance that seed flies over and goes into, let's say, from Wahiawa to Wailua, they're going to sue that Wailua farmer for having this similar seed just because it flew over. So I think we need to really see what Monsanto's true sort of, I don't know, we need to look at all the facets of what and how they operate at a local and a global level and compare what they've done in other countries to what they could do here in Hawaii. And I think that we just need to really evaluate and think what's going on and ask them more questions. And yes, I think it would be great in a way to force labeling, because then we would have to educate government people to know how to regulate that. And I think that scientists in the government aspect that are for the people, and not just corporations who control federal agencies and laws and regulators, you know, I think that if they can buy federal regulators, surely I hope they wouldn't buy local regulators. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Nope. Seeing none, is there anyone else here who'd like to testify on this? Please come forward.
Aloha. I'm Caterina Desiato. I would like to say that I'm aware that research about GMO is not unanimous. There is a whole big corpus of research that raise health issues about the use of GMOs, and I think also other issues should be considered, not only health issues but also issues of biodiversity that might be involved. So there is research about damage to biodiversity of both flora and fauna because of the introduction of GMOs-based monocultures. And again, I would like also to reiterate the right of consumer for to make informed decisions about what they are buying. If organic is labeled, why not GMO should be labeled? People have legitimate concerns about these things, and actually, whether the load is positive or negative, people should have the right to know. And even if somebody might support GMO, so they have the right to support GMO and buy it. Not only people are concerned by it.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members? Thank you. Is there anyone else here who'd like to testify on this?
Good morning, Chairwoman Covered and council members. My name is Mark Phillipson. I'm Corporate External Affairs with Syngenta Hawaii. We strongly oppose certain parts of Resolution 11339, specifically the provisions of Item 3 and the attendant bill entitled related to food labeling. The provisions of Item 3 in the said bill would impose additional costs on wholesale and food retailers who would presumably be doing this labeling, and just who would follow the box of cereal or pancake syrup or whatever food products are brought into the state or county and determine if they've been genetically modified or not, if the components in it. The result would be an added expense to the county and to state consumers. In addition, I think it would add a state of confusion to Hawaii consumers, knowing that their food needs to be labeled and the rest of the United States isn't. Contrary to the claims made in support of the measure, there is no health and safety justification for such legislation. To date, the public has consumed closer to 2 trillion meals of food products with biotech agriculture, and there's not a single documented incident of any ill or harm to a consumer. Indeed, the Food and Drug Administration has considered this fact and other data related to food products from the biotech crops and found no significant difference between these foods and their conventional or organic counterparts. In fact, the reason the FDA does not require labeling is that biotech food ingredients are substantially equivalent. Food labeling requirements, as regulated by the FDA, are intended to communicate information relevant to the health, safety, and nutrition of those products. Consumers who don't want to avoid buying genetically engineered foods can do so. They buy organic foods. This marketplace represents about 3% of the U.S. foodstuffs. They're readily available, they're labeled, and as most consumers know, they're GMO-free. There are specialty stores and sections in most supermarkets that feature these products. And also if passed, this is going to, I think, really put our papaya industry into peril again. And they've been through so much turmoil that I just don't think that they need to have a mandatory labeling on their products, especially when Japan just lifted their GMO restrictions on papaya. I think it would just be sending our Japanese importers the wrong message. Anyway, I strongly therefore urge the committee to amend the resolution by striking item 3 and the attendant bill before passing the other items in the resolution to the full council for a vote. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, Vice Chair, Councilmember Berg. Glad you finally made it here alive and in one piece.
Thank you.
You said aloha to Mom.
Good morning.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. I push this way because I'm a loud talker. My name is Alicia Maluafiti. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Crop Improvement Association, and we represent the ag biotech seed industry here in Hawaii. We're opposed to, again, item number 3, and we would support the amendment being proposed to delete number 3 from the resolution. Let me just touch on 3 major issues, and I think we've touched on them, so I won't spend a lot of time, but the number 1 was the safety issue. And I always go, everybody can Google whatever they want to get whatever information you want, but there's some things you just have to respect, and that is the World Health Organization, and they've made a statement about the safety of the They've made a few statements about the safety of genetically engineered crops and the necessity for these types of crops to feed a growing population that's going to tip 9 billion in the next 20 years. There's also an organization that it's the Toxicological Sciences Organization. It's a trade association, and they have actually published some safety studies through Oxford journals. Another very credible source that talks about the safety of genetically modified foods. So I would reference those two. The last one, of course, is Science 2.0 Journals, which does a lot of scientific research. And my politically incorrect comment on this would be they actually did a focus on the fact that it's not genetically engineered foods that make people sick. It's actually organic foods. Every single E. coli and salmonella outbreak across the world had to do with E. coli, salmonella from organic foods, not genetically engineered foods. So there are issues with food and disease and infections, but it's not from genetically engineered crops. We commented, people already have choices. If you're Jewish, you eat kosher foods, you can go into the store and you buy products labeled kosher. If you're vegan or vegetarian, you can go anywhere. Maybe you have a philosophical issue to wanting to eat range-free foods. Everything has a label already if you want to eat those types of food. If 70 to 80% of the foods, processed foods in the supermarket have ingredients that have genetically engineered ingredients in it, then basically what this reso would do is label all of those foods, 70, 80%. We already have a market for organic, all-natural, vegan, you name it, and there are labels already on it. And I brought this because I thought it was interesting. I actually got this at Costco, edamame hummus, and they actually took the opportunity to label in the ingredients GMO-free canola. So again, it comes down to choices. If people want the product and they want GMO-free, it's going to say it, and they can buy it, and they can feel good about what it is they're buying. A lot of my family, I married Samoan, my family is all going to buy at these stores in Kalihi and Waipahu. That's all the ripped up bags and everything that has an expiration date. I got to tell you, they don't care if the label says GMO-free or GMO. What they care about is the price. If it really comes down to price. If you force only Hawaii products to have a label, people from the mainland who are shipping all those goods to Hawaii, the potato chips, the crackers, you name it, basically 80% of the food's coming into the state. If all they have to do is put a label, a GMO label on their product to sell to less than 1% in Hawaii, they're just not going to ship their stuff to Hawaii. And if they are, they're going to charge us an arm and a leg like they already do. So this has huge cost implications and the imposition on our tiny island and our little state. So those are the reasons why we oppose that resolution and the labeling mandate. If you just cut out all the ideology, all the anti-Monsanto, Syngenta rhetoric, and it just comes down to food safety, there's not enough justification to require labeling. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Burke.
If you were in control and at the helm,
I'm not in control and at the
if
helm?
you were, would you find that there is a need for the federal government to be in the lead on this? And I'm looking at some of the testimony, and it seems that your justification is that state by state would, according to your testimony, would kind of wreak havoc. It'd be misleading and confusing.
Yeah.
So in the thrust of your testimony, do you find that it's really the jurisdiction and the thrust be at the federal level to give the states that guidance?
Well, actually, it is already federally regulated. And in fact, the biotech industry is one of the most regulated industries in the world. FDA, EPA, and USDA already regulate. And the FDA, as the former person that testified from Monsanto, they do regulate all the labeling mandates. And there's a wealth of information and almost 20 years of guidance, scientific-based research that enables the FDA and the other regulators to give that direction. Right now, it would be patchwork. If you require one state to label and no other states, basically what we're just saying is that the manufacturer's just not going to sell there. And if they do, it's going to be at an inordinate price. So we already have a labeling system in place, and it is by the FDA.
Thank you for that. Wow.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, members? Thank you very much. Anyone else here who'd like to testify on this, please come forward.
I'm Noah Ketter. I'm not going to have a whole, long thing. Just add to it. I've been made aware by multimedia, such as TV and reading and whatnot, and word of mouth, kind of, from people that are into like scientists and stuff that I know. And our local farmers, as well as farmers across the nation, because I'm American, I don't care about the other nations right now, because we're talking about our country. Their seeds that they use to plant their crops are special seeds that have been handed down through generations from sometimes. And if a GMO crop is growing nearby and there's some kind of cross-fertilization, it gets hybridized, and they can't sell their crop, even if a tiny portion of one of their fields has like about 15, 20 feet of something that's been hybridized, their crop is useless forever. They can never use their seeds again. Also, I lived on Maui for a long time. And they've had GMO corn there, growing there for, over 10 years at least. I don't know how long, I don't know the exact number, but since last decade. And they grow that specifically there because they don't grow commercial edible corn there. And that corn there is a bioengineered fuel product. It's not a human eating thing. As soon as GMO is huge, food's going to be useless. That's all.
Thank you.
A lot of food's going to be useless. Maybe not all of it. Maybe some of it's edible. The taste goes too, because I've tried both. Organic food tastes better. It's more expensive because a lot of it, we can't use pesticides for that. There aren't that many, small farmers anymore. The big corporations have taken over the food market. My grandpa was a dirt farmer up in northern Minnesota, Merlin Ballin, and they worked hard, but it was a struggle just to have a farm, many acres, hundreds of acres, all that. But still, and the corporations just want to take over and run the place. They already do, but we our tiny little humanity of things that we love and cherish are being destroyed, and that's part of what this is, and that's why we're here.
Thank you. Any questions, members?
No, sir.
No. Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else here? Please come forward.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. Dave Moskowitz from Waikiki. Recently, I was educated about Monsanto, and I think maybe you all don't know and maybe should do some online work about them and what their intentions are in the agricultural world. Currently, they control, I think, 90% of the seed market in the country. I think maybe the Amish are pretty good at keeping their seeds and their fields clean. What they're going to do to the environment and to the oceans and to the rivers and the streams it really disgusts me. And I don't think anything they say at all should be considered. You know, they need to, what's wrong with labeling? If the organics can label, how come they can't be identified? What's the cost? You know, it's nice to be working for someone and saying something that you're paid for and refer to people who in studies that are paid for by them. Unbelievable.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify on this?
One question.
Mr. Moskowitz, sorry, we've got one question for you.
Sorry, I have a habit of doing that.
When it comes to organic, is there any law that requires us currently that you should disclose and say it's organic? There's none, right?
There's
no.
Yeah. So.
If there's none, why not? And then you're asking another product that it should be.
I think
labeled.
people have the right for the information.
Then if they have the right for the information, whether it's organic and all that, it depends on whoever produces it to say it's organic or not.
Mm-hmm. So why don't they?
So if there's no labeling for organic as required, now you are asking the others to be mandatorily say label it. I cannot understand your logic.
I think they're withholding information purposefully.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify, please come forward. No, sorry, we're just, anyone else who has not given testimony already. Sorry, we're already running late. Please come forward.
My name is Sadie Green. I just had a couple of points that I wanted to bring up. The first one has to do with the health, and the second one with costs. So I heard these gentlemen talking about and also another testifier about that there haven't been reports of the negative health impacts of GMO. But I would like to just make the point that not eating well has caused a lot of long-term health long-term health problems in our society, and the rising, and the cost of taking care of illnesses is really astronomical right now, and it's causing a lot of social, there's a lot of social implications as well to that, and so those long-term health benefits need to be looked at as well, and thinking more long-term in terms of the solutions and the better future that we're all trying to build for our, for the future. I think it's important to keep that in mind, that even if there aren't specific health ailments that can be that we can point to that are caused by eating a GMO papaya, it is something to keep in mind that these products overall are causing our health to deteriorate, and the second thing that I wanted to bring up was about cost, because I understand what the testifier earlier was saying about her family caring more about the cost of food, but I think it's easy to look over the real cost of food. We've got costs that are involved with bringing food from the mainland, costs involved with health care, like I mentioned earlier, and also the costs to the environment. If you look at different farmlands and what happens when you have a monoculture of crops, as opposed to cycling different heirloom heirloom seeds and whatnot. So I think that we need to take all that into consideration. Even if when we buy it in the store, it seems like it's cheaper to us. There's actually hidden costs that are resource-based and health-based. And so I would really encourage all of the council members here to consider that, as well as the right of informed consent on behalf of the consumers.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here who'd like to testify on this measure?
Scott Winfrey. I would like to say that I prefer to eat local indigenous food, and if they're growing GMO foods here, they could mislabel it as being local. And I wouldn't want to come up against that problem, because where do these seeds come from? If I go to the grocery store and I'm eating a banana, it comes from Peru, I know it's from Peru, but I want to eat food from Hawaii, and just because it's grown here doesn't mean it originated here. So that's why I would wish to know if it's GMO.
Sorry, could you state your name again for the record?
Scott Winfrey.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions? No. Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here who'd like to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, I'm going to make my recommendation. I'll be recommending that we amend to the hand-carried CD1, and the reason is because this entire package of measures, which includes 14 different resolutions that have been collected from the various county councils from across the state, it is timely and it needs to be passed in order to meet the deadline for the state legislature opening session. I share many of the questions and concerns that have been brought up with regards to the GMO resolution. It's a very big subject and something that deserves more discussion and a lot more answers. And for that reason, I don't think that we'll be able to include that in this package that we pass out today. Members, is there any discussion on my recommendation to amend to the hand-carried CD1? Councilmember Chang.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your consideration of the tight timeline that we're on for the HSAC legislative package. I strongly support your recommendation to amend to a CD1. We've heard a lot of conflicting opinions on GMOs philosophically about what people think their effects will be, but I think the bottom line is that there are a number of purveyors of GMO-free foods, from large multinational corporations like Whole Foods to locally owned businesses like Umeke Markets. These, as far as I know, are clearly labeled. I've never heard of anyone being unable to find non-GMO foods because they didn't know where to look or because the labeling was poor in places like those merchants. And so that's why I fully support your recommendation to amend to a CD1 and to proceed with the rest of the package. Thank you.
Councilmember Harimoto.
Thank you. I also support your recommendation. Coming into this, I was aware of the raging debate going on about GMO, and I had an open mind, just wanted to hear all the testimony. And I think at this point, because of the urgency to move the package forward, I think your statement, Madam Chair, was correct, that we need to move this forward, but because there are these outstanding questions and issues, I think further debate is warranted. But the key to me is that we've heard, well, I've read through all the testimony, I've heard it all today. Not one person offered any scientific evidence of concerns with health or safety issues. I think a lot of it was just kind of emotional. I share some of those emotional concerns, but I was hoping someone here would present some evidence for me to grasp at. But I think there'll be further opportunities in the future. And I just really hope that there would be opportunity for us sometime in the future to consider all of this. But because of the urgency, I think it's well worth us just moving this on without this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harimoto. Any further discussion? Councilmember Cachola.
I'm not a member of this committee, but I think your recommendation is on the mark, especially when you have a provision in this bill on the first page, number 1, that allows manure as fertilizer for raw agricultural commodities may not be construed to mean that those commodities are produced with a genetically engineered material, meaning we allow fertilizers, manure, and all that to be used. I cannot understand that. So if you're really concerned about health, you should that provision in the bill as an exemption should not have been considered. And that's why I'm against producing manure or human fertilizer that we produce here in Honolulu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Councilmember Garcia.
I have an additional disclosure to make on this vote and with respect to the CD1, should it also be passed out of this committee. This has to do with item B. With respect to this legislation, is actually would increase the amount of time necessary for the review of affordable housing projects. I know this would not sit well with the development industry, but I'm doing it anyway. I think we do need more time to review affordable housing projects, especially if they come to us for consideration. So I make that disclosure as well. The Chamber of Commerce represents developers. They don't tell me what to do. By this vote, I am telling them what to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Any further discussion? Is there any objections to amending to the CD1? Hearing none, Resolution 11-339 is amended to CD1. I further recommend then that we report Resolution 11-339 CD1 out for adoption. Any discussion? Objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Members, at this time we have one item left on our agenda. Unfortunately, we are overdue and out of time, so we will be recessing this committee until 2:30 p.m. Thursday, November 17th, where we will reconvene. Okay. Correction. Okay, we are going to take up agenda item number 5, Bill 54, with relating to stored property. And first, I would like to call up from the administration, Lori Nishimura. Before we begin, I want to inform the public of a disclosure from Councilmember Garcia relating to this resolution. This states that the package of measures includes a proposal that addresses GMO foods with an overabundance of caution. I disclose that I am Executive Director of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce, and its membership includes firms that are involved in GMO foods.
I will say that I am going to propose this without having consulted with any of the stakeholders, including the Chamber, so I make the decision on my own. Madam Chair, I propose a CD1 to this measure that would remove the GMO bill from this legislation.
Okay. Council Chair Martin.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I know that Councilmember Garcia did mention his disclosure, and actually he is submitting this particular CD1 on my behalf.
At this time, I'd like to note that we do have a very full agenda today. We're expecting a lot of discussion on different items, so we will try to get through everything as quickly as possible. But if we are not able to finish within our allotted time period, we will recess the meeting and continue on Thursday. And the reason is because this entire package of measures, which includes 14 different resolutions that have been collected from the various county councils from across the state, it is timely and it needs to be passed in order to meet the deadline for the state legislature opening session. I share many of the questions and concerns that have been brought up with regards to the GMO resolution. It's a very big subject and something that deserves more discussion and a lot more answers. And for that reason, I don't think that we'll be able to include that in this package that we pass out today.
Because of the urgency to move the package forward, I think your statement, Madam Chair, was correct, that we need to move this forward, but because there are these outstanding questions and issues, I think further debate is warranted, but because of the urgency, I think it's well worth us just moving this on without this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harimoto. Okay, seeing no further testimony, at this time we're going to close the public testimony portion of this hearing and recess the Committee on Safety, Economic Development, and Government Affairs. We will reconvene on Thursday, November 17th at 2:30 p.m. for discussion and decision-making on this bill. I want to say thank you to Councilmember Berg. We are an hour and 20 minutes into his committee's time, so thank you for your patience in allowing this to continue today. This committee's in recess.
Can I make an announcement?
Okay, everyone, good morning and thank you for being here. Okay, moving on to resolutions. I call upon the Committee on Safety, Economic Development, and Government Affairs, Subject Matter Chair and Councilmember Gabbard for the motion.
I move that Committee Report 347 and Resolution 11-339 CD1 be adopted.
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Gabbard for the explanation.
This resolution relates to the 2012 Hawaii State Association of Counties legislative package.
Okay, do we have a further motion?
Is this the appropriate time?
Yeah.
I move that Resolution 11-339 CD1 be amended to an FD1.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Berg for the explanation of the proposed amendment.
Very briefly, this proposed amendment tries to mirror what's the efforts at the state legislature with Senate Bill 1086 and Conference Committee, that with the labeling issue regarding frozen bread and fresh bread, they thought that signage could mitigate this, so that it was a start. This kind of mirrors the effort this FD1, the late Congresswoman Patsy Mink was working on this for years to provide labeling, and I find that this type of a signage issue in this FD1 would allow for discussion, members.
Okay, members, we have a number of registered testifiers for this particular resolution. Please step to the mic as I call you up. First, we have Denise Snyder.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Short recess.
Okay.
Keikis in the park, the sun is setting. Mama's in the kitchen, beef stews are cooking. Papa's busy making room for all the presents, 'cause everybody knows that Santa's coming soon. People celebrating, ukuleles playing, Auntie Alice doing her favorite hula. Uncle Kimo's feeling good, pass out in the corner. It's Christmas time again. Aloha. With mistletoes and twinkle toes, runny nose and no more snow, dogs and trains and chocolate candies all in a row. Good luck wishes, good night kisses, dirty dishes, Merry Christmas, everybody knows. Keikis in the park, the sun is setting, Mama's in the kitchen. Santa's coming soon.
Okay. Before I go to the first testifier, we actually have another proposed FD1 from Councilmember Stanley Chang, so I'm going to go to the council member to explain his proposed amendment so that the testifiers can testify on either amendment that's being proposed this afternoon. So, Councilmember Chang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to further amend Resolution 11-339 to an FD1.
For the second, Councilmember Gabbard, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. For the explanation, Councilmember Chang.
Thank you. The proposed FD1 eliminates, the CD1 eliminates item number 3 relating to labeling of genetically engineered food. This FD1 preserves that removal. It further removes the proposal revising agricultural product branding, which is Exhibit D, as part of the resolution. Moreover, this FD1 adds a measure that was inadvertently left out of the initial package relating to electronic waste recycling. That proposal is included as Exhibit O in the resolution. And the reason, the difference, what this FD1 does is it preserves the integrity of the HSAC process. As you know, Mr. Chair, for an item to be included in the HSAC package, it must be approved verbatim by the 4 county councils. Each of the measures in this FD1 has been considered and either approved or disapproved by all the 4 county councils. It does not make any internal changes to any of the bills, which would invalidate them from appearing in the county in the HSAC package in any case.
Thank you, Councilmember Chang, for the explanation. Okay, members, we're going to go to the list of registered testifiers. First up is Ms. Denise Snyder, followed by Melissa Yee, followed by Elaine Can.
Could I just ask, so is my understanding then that we're now voting on exactly the same bill that passed over in Maui and Kauai?
Actually, you can testify on any of the proposed measures.
Wait, I want to testify on the one that passed in Maui and Kauai.
That was the initial resolution, Resolution 11-339. The CD1 version, which is the most current version that was passed, takes out the GMO.
So that's the one that in committee?
Then you can testify. Your testimony should be for the council's consideration to reinsert that particular matter.
I'm confused. When I want to testify on the one that puts the GMO labeling back in, but I also want it to not, I'm confused about. Right.
Okay, let me try to explain what's happening. Or you want to try to take a shot at it, Councilmember Chang? Go ahead.
Yes, please. I'll try to make it as clear as I can. Neither of the 2 FD1s would include a GMO labeling bill in the HSAC package. The Berg FD1 includes a different bill from the one considered by the HSAC Executive Committee and different from the one considered by the county councils of the other counties. And because it did not go through that process, it will not be included in the HSAC package, no matter what we do here today at the Honolulu City Council.
Excuse Excuse me.
Here, come here.
You gonna forego your opportunity to testify? You can offer that when you come up to testify.
I yield and let her take my place now.
Okay.
I don't want to take my place on let it do clarification.
You can speak to that during your testimony. Okay. Excuse me. You can offer that when it's your opportunity to testify.
She has more understanding of it.
Okay. Okay. Right now we have Denise Snyder. Denise, you want to offer any testimony?
I want to make it clear that I am testifying on behalf of the GMO labeling food bill. Now I don't know which one that is.
None of the matters that are being
can you
considered.
yeah.
None of the matters that are being considered includes the GMO resolution that you want to seek to have reinserted. That was in the original resolution. In the CD1 version, it takes it out. So your testimony, if that's what your particular interest is to ask for the council's consideration to reinsert that through a further amendment.
And then if it does get reinserted, will it be part of that package that'll go to the legislature in January?
It would be part of the HSAC package because I believe the other 3 counties have included it as part of their package. All 4 counties have to include the resolutions in order for it to be part of the overall HSAC package.
So was that a yes? So it is? Yes. Yes? Okay. Okay, my name is Denise Snyder. I'm here in favor of genetic modified food labeling. There were no human trials before genetically engineered foods were released into the U.S. food system. After the failure of the first GE, I meant to say that I have extensive written testimony. I hope you guys all read it. After the failure of the first GE tomato flavor saver, all future GE food releases were done without any labeling or notice beginning around '96 because the American consumers did not want to eat genetically modified food. Every effort was made to keep the U.S. public unaware that we had, without our knowledge, become participants in unsupervised and undocumented food testing. And I had no knowledge. I was shopping in health food stores back then, and there was no way we knew that genetically modified food was in our system until Europe boycotted our food, and we found out they were boycotting it because it was genetically modified. Over 50 countries and over 40% of the world's population has genetically modified food labeling. But we are being told by the GMO seed industry that the United States, the most powerful and wealthy country on the entire planet, that we here in the U.S. cannot afford genetically modified food labels. Well, that is absurd. And it's as absurd as a lot of the other lies and mistruths that the GMO industry is telling us. Now, Monsanto is one of the primary, they have now cornered, they bought up a bunch of seed companies over the last couple or few decades, and they now own pretty much all of the regular seed and the vast majority of the genetically modified food seed. They also are they're the manufacturer of Roundup, which we were told for years was so safe you could actually drink it. Parents, well, my father never wore protective clothing, and he sprayed it when we were all around, and plenty of fathers did. We now find out that Monsanto was known for years how toxic it was, and the studies are finally coming out. It has polluted our food and water and our land. And anyway, I just urge you, in closing. I could go on for a long time, and again, I urge you, we do have science to back our claims that genetically modified food is not the same as regular food. The FDA scientists had 40,000 documents were released in some kind of a lawsuit, Need to Know, where the scientists of the FDA urged their superiors not to let GMO food out into the food system without extensive food trials. No food trials were done. And I want to close saying once again, I mean, again, you know, the whole anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor and our island, and what these soldiers and what all the military was here fighting for now and then is the rights of human rights. And once again, this is a human right. We all have a human right to know about the food we're eating. And
Ms. Snyder, thank you, Ms. Snyder.
Please give us that human right to know. Give us genetically modified food
Thank you.
labeling in Hawaii.
Members, any questions for Ms. Snyder? Councilmember Burr.
You know, Chair, if you would allow me to, I think I owe it to the testifier to give some explanation of Exhibit C that I'm offering. She wanted to bring testimony and wasn't clear as to how to express this reinsertion. To my understanding, the other counties have all approved of labeling.
Mm-hmm.
And with this FD1 that I've proposed of Exhibit C is that instead of labeling, of which the legislature has been reviewing for years, was signage. And I merely mirrored that in my floor draft that said, for the consumer, when you walk into a store, it could say, all these shelves here may or may not have such.
Mm-hmm.
And this aisle or this table doesn't have such. Mm-hmm. And so it's a sign.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be an inexpensive way to help the consumer identify for their foodstuffs which they'd like to consume and purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to make it clear
Mm-hmm.
that in my proposal of this FD1, so that subsequent testifiers come forward, that it is not the labeling that you're seeking,
Mm-hmm.
it is rather a signage.
It's already done. The same thing that was on the website a couple of days ago.
That is
Okay,
correct. So
great.
I hope that
Okay.
I hope
Yeah,
that the
that's
chair.
what I
Thank you,
read.
thank you
Okay.
for letting me elaborate for the
Okay.
testifier.
Yeah, that is what I saw. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the testifier? No, thank you, Ms. Snyder. Okay, next testifier, Melissa Yee, followed by Elaine Kam, followed by Lauren Pang. Are any of them here? Melissa Yee?
She has to go to work.
Elaine Kam?
Good afternoon, folks, Chairman Martin, and members of the council. My name is Elaine Kam. I'm a resident here, a mother and a grandmother. I strongly support Resolution 11339 CD1, and it includes labeling GMO foods and signage. I strongly urge you to pass this crucial resolution. GMO, or genetically modified organisms, food developed by inserting unrelated species in rice, human liver genes in rice, rat and human genes in trout, cow and human genes in salmon, is unhealthy and a serious threat to our planet. As a matter of fact, to all of our lives, every living creature, plant, on land, sea, and in the air, and a threat to our water, resources, and soil. And 10 reasons to avoid GMO, which I found on the internet, helped me to realize the worldwide danger of GMO food and associated pesticide products. This was done by Dr. Joseph Mercola, a respected doctor of medicine and holistic practices, Jeffrey Smith, advocate of health and non-GMO, and Paige Remick, expert green living advocate. And the 10 ones I'll hurry through is GMOs are unhealthy, contaminate forever, increase herbicide use, and genetic engineering creates dangerous side effects. 5, government oversight is dangerously lax. 6, the biotech industry such as Monsanto uses tobacco science to claim product safety, and that's a lie. They told us that Agent Orange, PCBs, and DDT were safe. They're using the same superficial rigged research to convince us that GMOs are safe. Independent scientists, however, as you may know, have caught them red-handed, demonstrating how industry-funded research is designed to avoid finding problems and how adverse findings are distorted or denied. 7, independent research and report is attacked and suppressed. 8, GMOs harm the environment. 9, they do not increase yields and work against feeding a hungry world. And this was shown in the Union of Concerned Scientists 2009 report, Failure to Yield, the definitive study to date on GMO crops and yield. And 10, by avoiding GMOs as consumers, we could help, keep the suppliers from producing and supplying GMO. Eyewitnesses throughout the world reported that 11 types of animals, such as cows, pigs, deers, and rats and chickens, were given a choice, and they avoided genetically modified food. And even Dr. Joseph Mercola strongly believes that we should take a cue from these animals, as they virtually will never willingly eat GMO food if conventional food is available. They will avoid GMO food to the point of starvation, a clear sign that they have an intuitive sense of the danger inherent with this food. Council members support Resolution 11339 CD1, and that includes labeling and signage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Can. Members, any questions for the testifier? Nope. Okay, moving on. Lauren Pang, followed by Yo Kobayashi, followed by Courtney Brutch.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Pang. I'm a physician from Maui. I have to give you a little bit about my background here. I watched your previous testimony. You gave great credence to people who messed with pharmaceuticals. You gave great credence to the WHO. I have worked as an active consultant for the World Health Organization since 1985. I was assigned to Geneva. My area of specialty was pharmaceutical trials, drugs and vaccines. I monitored the trials and I taught the course. I co-founded the course in 1985. My students teach the course now, and it would be remiss and unfair to my students to let these issues go unanswered. First of all, what did I learn with WHO and pharmaceuticals? Number one principle is you do not let people with conflict of interest, you do not let the companies, you do not let these ag firms, corporate people speak unless they have data. And it is only the data we want. We do not actually welcome or solicit their interpretation or summaries. Why is that? Because as WHO, we were responsible for independent confirmation. And if we coincidentally found the same thing they found, we would be accused of collusion. Okay, so that's the basic principle. All I saw was your first testimony with people from industry telling you how wonderful and safe it is. In my opinion, those claims are unfounded and untrue. I don't care if you claim you've tested 1 million and billions of meals. We smoked 1 million and billions cigarettes. And only in 1955, 53, did we finally figure out it caused cancer. 20 years later, secondhand smoking. So big numbers, long time, only means big invalid studies to me. The other thing is Monsanto headquarters brought over Dr. Goldstein from St. Louis to debate with me in front of the Maui Medical Society. He said two things. One was true and one was false. But that's Monsanto's policy, so I asked Monsanto, stick by it. What he said was, we cannot know the safety of these foods. That's true. We cannot know, you do not know. But what he said is also, we will never know. Because he said that in order to test the safety, you'd have to lock away someone for 30 years and feed them nothing but GMO food. That is absolutely wrong. We test the safety of drugs against normal diets. That's how we pull and label them. So please ask Monsanto to go by what their head medical officer says. They do not know the safety. The WHO, I will leave it written for you.
Thank you.
Their position is they do not know the safety.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pang. Members, any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Floor Leader Cachola.
Doctor, how do you know or make food GMO?
How do you make food GMO?
Yeah.
In general, you insert foreign DNA that doesn't really belong in that species or that individual. You insert it into the DNA and you have it express, and normally it doesn't do that.
Does injecting what you said be direct or can also be indirect?
Sorry, the what is indirect? I'm a little hard of hearing.
You said that you're injecting what now?
You're putting DNA from one individual or species into another.
Yeah, okay.
And that becomes part of their DNA and they begin to express.
Okay. Does it need to be direct or it can also be done indirect?
I don't know what you mean, but it does have to be direct. I mean, it does have to express however it gets in there.
I saw some of the testimony that says fertilizer affects GMO.
It is true. Well, what you say, fertilizer might affect the expression of the inserted mutations. When you put the inserted mutations in, they may not express, which is a mistake. They may express exactly the amount you want, or they may overexpress. Fertilizers, rain, sunlight, changes can affect the amount of expression.
Okay. The city and county of Honolulu produces pelletized fertilizer out of wastewater.
Yes.
And to be able to have that fertilizer be effective, it doesn't kill the toughest pathogen because you don't require it to be fully cooked. So when you plant it to vegetables,
Yes.
whatever, then those pathogens can get in there.
Correct.
So will that change it can be considered to be genetically...
No. The fertilizer may have pathogens, germs, intact germs. These germs that it has have not been genetically modified. But putting fertilizer with or without germs onto genetically engineered crops may affect the expression of the mutation that you put in. It's a little bit different argument. The germs are intact. They have not been modified. The real concern is that many germs, mostly viruses, have been shown in the laboratory to pick up the mutations from the plant and hold it in the soil and transfer it to other plants. This is called horizontal gene transfer. That is another issue which you might be alluding to, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because we heard before that no organic farmers use human fertilizer or fertilizer out of wastewater. Is that correct?
That's another issue altogether. The wastewater will have chemical toxins or germs, but those, as far as we know, have not been genetically modified.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any further questions for Dr. Peng? Go ahead, Councilmember Harimoto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doctor, thank you very much for your testimony. I readily admit I'm not an expert in this, and I'm really curious about one thing. So my understanding is that in the United States, the Food and Drug Administration has jurisdiction over this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, have they taken a stand on this matter?
The Food and Drug Administration, last I read of their policy, which is 2005, they claimed substantial equivalence, that they thought they were close enough. Since then, in 2007, there is a report by the FDA scientists of the FDA, and it is a stinging criticism that they do not know this kind of science, they cannot afford it, and that it's not part of their vision. The Food and Drug Administration has been criticized beyond GM foods. Conflict of interest published in New England Journal of Medicine for pharmaceuticals. The Food and Drug Administration has been published by Hillary Clinton forcing their director to resign. They are in trouble. If you think they have your back, it's like MMA thinking that BP was going to protect the Gulf states. MMA, Mines and Mineral Administration, literally in bed with BP. The science is not there. I taught for them. I worked with them. Their reputation was built on people in our era who built their credibility. We built it on data. Their statement of substantial equivalence is not data. It's an opinion. The only valid opinion is by the National Academy of Science. They claim that GMO food has a higher risk of unintended health effects than regular food. Their opinion stands above that of the FDA with no data.
And how long have we been ingesting this GMO food?
About 10 years, maybe 10 or 12. It depends on what scale you're talking about, large scale, small scale. And it's not, that question is kind of loaded. Each mutation is considered a new product till proven otherwise. So if you ask me, well, how long have we ingested drugs? My goodness, if we talk about aspirin, 50 years, so I guess it's safe. All drugs are safe because aspirin was ingested for 50 years. Each drug is a new compound which has to be looked at independently.
Thank you.
I'll leave my written testimony. I was instructed just to leave it here.
Yeah, the clerk will take it from you. Thank you, Dr. Peng. Next testifier, we have Yo Kobayashi, followed by Courtney Bruce, followed by Meredith Murphy.
Good afternoon, Chairman, council members. My name is Yo Kobayashi. I'm from Maui, and I'm here in support of the original bill. I appreciate Councilman Berg's intention, but it should be on the onus of the food producers. So I support the original bill. When industries are faced with restrictions, tighter restrictions, that often benefit consumers, if it's inconvenient to them, they will push back hard, often citing exaggerated costs. Example, Ford Company in the 70s claimed seat belts would put them out of business. Monsanto and chemical companies in the 70s said tighter regulations on chemicals like PCB and DDT would cost $65 billion and 2 million jobs. Well, the tighter regulations were enacted. Cost was 5% of original estimates, no impact to jobs. So what is the cost to the consumer for labeling? $5 per person annually. This is the average of 5 major studies conducted in Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Quebec, and Oregon. And except for the Oregon study, it was commissioned by national and local governments with no corporate interest. Now, on the other hand, if you look at studies that were backed by corporates, it showed price increase over $100. One last thing I'd like to talk about is some people have concerns that Hawaii would be ignored if we institute GMO labeling, or it would be really expensive. Well, companies already have capacity to label GMOs because they're already shipping to Japan and Europe and other countries that mandate GMO labeling. The food is already labeled, and they already have the capacity, so it wouldn't cost very much more to do that for Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for the testifier? Floor Leader Cachola.
You mentioned Monsanto.
Yes.
Are they the only company doing this?
No. There's other companies, Syngenta, Pioneer, but Monsanto is the clear leader. They're the biggest company in this field.
So,
yes, I have.
So we have farmers, producers, other than Monsanto, that shift their products to produce to Hawaii, right?
Well, Monsanto produces the seeds. They provide the seeds to the farmers.
Yeah, but it's not really correct when you just target one company. You should at least say there are a lot of companies.
Absolutely, you're right. Absolutely, I should have said chemical companies, right, including Monsanto. U.S.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
Any further questions, members? No? Thank you, Mr. Kobayashi. Okay, Courtney Bruce, followed by...
Chair?
Yep.
Just for clarification, there is nothing before the council this evening that would reinstate into the HSAC package us asking the legislature to enact GMO labeling of food in our legislative package. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in order for such legislation to be considered, this council would have to, somebody here would have to make a further motion so as to amend the HSAC legislative package that's before us.
To re-include that
To
particular
re-include
matter.
it because it's already been taken out.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Please.
My name is Courtney Brooke. I represent myself, GMO-Free Maui, Oahu on the Big Island, and Upcountry Sustainability Core Committee. Good afternoon. My understanding after talking to HSAC member Pontanillos from Maui, his legal attorney, is that because all 3 other islands have supported the original draft, if you all decide to support Tom Berg's or you decide to reinstate the original draft into Stanley Chang's CD1, I believe that's the correct terminology, then the HSAC committee, the executive HSAC committee, would be able to decide how they wanted to word it and send it to state ledge. So that's what the attorney told me yesterday. That is different than what you're saying. So I'd like to know what's correct.
We have our own attorneys.
Pardon?
We have our own attorneys, and according to what we've been advised, that in order for the GMO resolution to be part of the HSAC package, it has to be included in Honolulu's package. Any separate resolution, irrespective of how it's worded, from our interpretation, will not allow it to be part of the HSAC package. I'm just giving you our opinion. If you want to rely on the Maui attorney's opinion, that's within your prerogative, but I would just offer testimony as to the matters you are here here before us today.
Okay. Thank you. So
Okay.
I'd like to begin my testimony
Yeah,
now.
go ahead.
Okay.
We'll allow you to testify.
So I brought a couple of props here. Again, my name is Courtney Brooke. You should all have received one of these today. I'll give you a nice blessing in there with your request to support GMO-free labeling. I also brought this to represent the revolving door between the FDA, USDA, and federal government. You have a copy of this as well. This was passed out to you today. These are all seats in the federal government, including U.S. congressmen, senators, Federal Drug Administration, USDA, EPA. This list is all Monsanto employees. All of these people, and this isn't all the people that exist that have both worked for Monsanto and the federal government, but there's 15 people listed here. So this is obviously, to me, a sign of corruption and invested, like, public interest. I mean, their own personal interests are involved here. Monsanto, federal government, all these people have worked for both. Okay. This morning, it was overheard, something to the effect that Nestor Garcia was saying that he was going to kill this GMO labeling bill before even her testimony today. I hear him speak today about being a champion for the people and about people having a choice. I hope you all will give people a choice in this matter. I hope you all have come here with an open mind and an open heart. Today you have the opportunity to be well educated by the people for the people versus representatives from biotech being paid to be here and the farmers' bureaus who also have members who support labeling. How can you trust regulatory agency reports by the FDA and USDA with a revolving door with Monsanto and other biotech companies? You can't. Your health and those of the Keiki and all of Hawaii are at risk by ingesting GMO food without informed consent. All 3 islands have voted in support of this HSAC GMO labeling item in its original form. You are guardians. Food is sacred. Please make the right choice here today. Be a champion for the people. Protect all the generations that are eating this food. Please support the floor draft, or it sounds like we need someone to reinstate the original resolution draft, or we need another council member to propose another floor draft. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Brooke. Members, any questions? Councilmember Burke.
Ms. Brooke, I want to bring to your attention, I'm going to phrase this in a question. You just heard some rulings or discussion in regards to what this council did on my floor draft, that it would not, you couldn't powwow or parlay with the other counties. It's null and void. And the reason that I appreciate your testimony is, would you support, my question, would you support the fact that, because when we have time to discuss amongst us, I'm going to ask this council, my colleagues, that we have a special meeting, that all the counties entertain this, that it's not a black and white if or and we walk away. I think this is so important. So my question to you is, would you support the fact that technically, if even my colleagues approved of my floor draft 1 and wanted it, it doesn't pan out, would you still take the argument and position that we should have as an expend tax, whatever it may be, and have a special meeting for all the counties to engage in possibly this new language? Would you support that, rather saying, if we don't come to a consensus today and mirror and match what they've done, that it's null and void? Would you rather say we should have another bite at the apple? We should have another opportunity to work with our colleagues on the other neighbor islands. What would be your position?
Well, certainly, if for some reason Oahu County Council is the one council of the 3 that decides not to support this item, it will come up again. And as far as to me, signage is a form of labeling. And I was very curious. I was glad that you explained what you meant, because I've been wondering what you meant by that signage. And what Tulsi Gabbard's, one of her aides, I think it was Dean, mentioned to me, was that one possibility of signage would be, like at the store, when you look under the product and it has the UPC and it has the name of the product and the price, that it could be listed there, that it's, has genetically modified GMO included. And that way, because we were kind of wondering, is this really, should this be put on the grocers, or is it really the manufacturers? I realize that even if you all support this HSAC item for labeling, it's going to go to the state ledge, and it's going to be refined and reworded anyway. So I would really just appreciate if you would stand up today and support the labeling of GMOs in whatever way would put it back into HSAC so it could go to the state ledge. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
It does? Okay. Thank you.
Lolita Cachola.
I saw several signs out there. One is label GMO. The other one is no GMO. Are they the same? So one is label, and the other one is don't produce GMO, right? So which one do you folks want? You want to kill?
Everyone in here is an individual person, first of all. Just like you are individual council members and you all have a vote, we are all different people here. So we all come with different needs and different requests.
No, but you folks are giving us wrong signal.
Who's you folks?
Label GMO, that means you can sell if you label.
Okay.
No GMO means don't produce GMO.
So there's people here that obviously want it labeled.
So practically, what you want is kill GMO.
Some people may want that, and some people want it labeled.
The same sign. I'm confused the way you folks are presenting.
Are you really confused about this?
Yes.
Okay, well, are you confused by my testimony?
Not only that.
Are you confused by my testimony?
In a way, yes. But I want you to understand, you folks are coming here to testify, meaning everyone.
Okay.
And they already said that the proposal of Councilmember Thunberg is different from what was approved by the different counties.
We heard that today, about 10 minutes ago.
So that even if we pass it, it will go back to the different counties, and they have a deadline, December 23rd, to be able to come up with a package. Even if we pass Councilmember Berg's proposal, it doesn't more or less make it to the deadline, and therefore it's nothing.
So is that true? It would go to the other councils if people, because I didn't hear that. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, well that's good to know.
That's why, even if it doesn't pass here, because that doesn't prevent you folks to introduce that in the state legislature, because the four counties just urging the state legislature to consider labeling or killing GMO. That's what you folks want.
But you know what it would do is it would let your Oahu constituents know that you have some concern about GMO labeling amongst all the other counties that do. It would let them know that.
Well,
and that's really important. What's really important about this HTEC process, I've been working on this over a year now, and is that we get to educate, you all get to be educated on all the counties, and you all are so important. You're the council members, and that's what I've learned in this process. You all are so important, and that more and more people in the general community are realizing that if we build relationships with you, we can be part of this process, and we can have our needs met.
How long has this been going on and being introduced in the state legislature and acted and being heard by the state legislature? How many years?
I know it was heard last year. This year, actually, this year.
Too, right?
But I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm hearing yes, but I'm not. I got involved with this.
So whether you like it or not, even if you have unanimously support this, state legislature will have the final say.
And I realize that.
Just go straight to the state legislature because it cannot meet the deadline. We already took it out. So just for you folks to know, okay? Thank you.
And you know, there could still be one more council meeting next week, or 2 weeks from now, on all the agendas. They could hear this. They could hear Tom Berg's HSAC floor draft, and they could vote on it. So this is still very much alive. Just because it was removed on the 15th at a council meeting, a committee meeting, where there were only there were a lot of biotech people there. This was brought back alive, and I really want to thank you very much. It really means a lot to me to be able to fly here from Maui and be able to talk about this.
Thank you, Ms. Brooke. Members, any further questions for the testifier? No further questions? Thank you. Meredith Murphy, Meredith Murphy here? Okay. Katrina Diasato, Jennifer Warren. Is Jennifer here? Jennifer?
Let's see if I can do this. Aloha everyone, I'm Caterina Desiato. I'm here to not to support this resolution. I was confused too. I'm supporting the reintroduction of GMO labeling. I just brought a few studies because I would like to take also the opportunity to educate each other. So in 2005, a study by Irna Ermakova reports that more than half the babies from mother rats fed genetically modified soy died within 3 weeks. Genetically modified soy-fed rats were found also significantly having significant slow growth and infertility. Similar results have been found in an Austrian government study published in November 2008. A death rate 5 times higher than the control groups was found also in Alex Surov 2010 study. He gave a Monsanto genetically modified soy to hamsters, and results show also slower growth and infertility. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine reported that several animal studies indicate serious health risks associated with genetically modified food, including infertility, immune problems, and I have to continue, allergies, accelerated aging, faulty insulin regulation, and changes in major organs. Genetically engineered bovine growth hormone, Monsanto's Posilac, is in U.S. cows, in spite of the fact that 2 meta-analyses found that animals encounter 25% increase in the risk of clinical mastitis, a 40% reduction in fertility, 55% increased risk of developing clinical signs of lameness, that is, mobility issues. All this for around 10% increase milk production. A European Union scientific commission found similar results, and therefore that is banned in Europe. United States is the only developed nation to permit milk from cows given artificial growth hormone to be given to humans. Posilac was banned from use in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and European Union countries. Based on the work of Barbara McClintock, who received the Nobel Prize for her findings in genetics in 1983, we know that genetic modifications entails unintended and unpredictable mutations that emerge only in the long run. Of particular concern are the observed mutation from proto-oncogenes to oncogenes which supports cancer. These mutations increase and become clear only after several generations. Therefore, unintended effects emerge only in the long run and increase exponentially over time. Unintended effects are not only at the level of the health of the modified organisms, they are also at the level of the ecosystem in terms of biodiversity and health of the environment in which these organisms are introduced. And these ecosystem level effects are reported extensively by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations.
I'm going to have to ask you to conclude, please.
Okay. So because of this, literally, the people who are eating without really knowing genetically modified food are actually being testers of these products without informed consent, because of the fact that, because of what we know, thanks to the work of Barbara McClintock and other biotechnologists, we know that the effects, the unintended effects emerge exponentially only in the long run. We are all being tested without informed consent. So
Thank
labeling.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yes.
Members, any questions for the testifier? Members, any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Jennifer Warren.
Good afternoon, council members. I appreciate what a long day you've had. I've been here with you, so thank you very much for still being awake. and ready to hear testimony. Again, my name's Jennifer Warren. I came here today from Maui County to bring this before you to ask you to please, and as I'm learning with everyone, there's been many twists and turns, so in whatever capacity you can keep this forward and alive and as part of the legislative process, please do so. The absence of proof is not the proof of absence. Without labeling, there's no traceability in the food chain to track illness in these new food products. The FDA decided to release GMOs onto the market with no testing under the doctrine of substantial equivalence, which is a legal term with no biological basis. The idea is that if it looks and smells like something, it must be that thing. But on the level of genetic engineering, when we're introducing modifications into genetic code, we are so far outside of our knowledge base, and our hubris is so great. We have no clue what we have unleashed. We truly don't, because we haven't tested it. And that's part of, and the person who did that doctrine in the FDA was a Monsanto attorney. So again, clear conflict of interest has been here from the beginning, from the very expression of this idea into the public in the first place. Industry studies typically focus on short-term animal toxicity for no longer than 3 months, and they also tend to skew and manipulate data. As this book, Genetic Roulette, demonstrates the documented health risks of genetically engineered foods, this is filled with these studies that people have been presenting. The things that they find in the independent studies are things such as sterility, stillbirth, organ failure, severe allergic reactions. These are mega problems, and they're showing up across the board. They're showing up across countries, across different kinds of food. It is a major problem. Whether it's an inconvenient truth or not, once it's in the food supply, it's in. And if we're wrong, we're very wrong. So I call upon you today to please consider labeling, because without labeling, we have no opportunity to test. We have no opportunity to prove anything. So for your own health, your children's health, your ohana's health, give us the opportunity to track the data so we can actually have verifiable science, so we can agree upon what's actually happening in our food supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Members, any questions for the testifier? No questions? Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. Jerry Dill, followed by Christopher Camarillo, followed by Jean Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jerry Dill, West Oahu. I work for Monsanto. I've been in the industry for more than 30 years after doing my postgraduate work at Louisiana State University. I'd like to make a couple of statements. I did submit an email. The products are regulated by the FDA, USDA, and EPA, and the data packages are actually turned in from the results of studies and reviewed independently. These studies take 8 to 10 years, cost about $100 million, and I know that doesn't mean anything to a lot of people in the room, but the bottom line is they are studied intensively. There have been over 2.7 billion acres of these products put into production agriculture across the globe over the past 15 plus years. We're going into 16 years. There have been almost 2 trillion meals prepared from these products. No one's linked anything of a human health hazard to any of those served meals. Finally, I come from production agriculture on the mainland, integrated rice, soybean, crawfish operation. And I can tell you we've used these products, we use them very effectively to reduce cost and increase productivity on our own operations. Finally, I worry about cost in this whole equation. Number one, for the state of Hawaii and its taxpayers in terms of putting and enforcing independent state labeling system. I worry about the cost to consumers of passing that on, and I do worry about the cost of having less competition because we may have food producers choose not to come here and decrease the competition and increase costs. Finally, there is a choice. There is a choice. The organic marketing moniker is a place where you can be assured that it's GMO-free. So if you philosophically and ideologically object to it, there is an option. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Burke.
Very quickly, in the phrase of a question, if you walked into a grocery store
yes,
and it had a sign up and it said aisles 1 through 19 may or may not contain GMO. However, aisle 20 is GMO free, and it's just a sign. So the cost is a magic marker on a piece of paper. Would you support that as a consumer walking into a store, knowing that these aisles may have it, and this one doesn't? Because not everybody lets you know where the organics or the shelves are or the table is, whether it's frozen bread or fresh bread and all that stuff. And so the signage is a compromise. So my question to you is, do you see that, albeit you and I may eat Twinkies and all the bacon we can put down our gullet, some treat their body like a temple and want to know. What would you say to the sign in the store?
So my objection, both personally and as a representative of the company, or to the signs in the back that one of the council members asked, is it no GMO or label GMO? And under the basic premise, it's no GMO. And I have a basic objection that the USDA, the EPA, and the FDA label these things as equivalent, and yet there's a philosophical belief that the will of some other people should be imposed on what I consume.
Yeah, excuse me, please. Please, we want respect for everyone here. We welcome all opinions. Excuse me, if you cannot control yourself, you need to leave. Okay? Next registered testifier, Christopher Camarillo, followed by Jean Riley, followed by Laulani Teo. Is Christopher here? He had to leave. Okay. Jean, is Jean here?
Good afternoon. My name is Jean Riley. I'm from Waikiki, and I'm absolutely in favor of, yes, no more GMO, but yes, label it if we're going to have it. And I prepared some notes here. GMOs are altering the genetic biofootprint of the earth. Every man, woman, and child has altered DNA as a result. It's documented that GMO is not food. It is unrecognizable as food by the human body. The spread and mutation of our food supply by GMO pollinated seeds is irreversible, dangerous, and reckless, and intentional. And one of you was asking about how these things get inserted. One way they alter salmon. In 2 years, you will not be able to eat a normal salmon at this rate. They take a chicken cancer virus and they inject it along with eel genes into the salmon. And the salmon's strong and aggressive, and it's going to ruin our salmon supply. So what we have is a hostile corporate takeover of the entire world's food supply, concentrating ownership into fewer and fewer hands. There are seed vaults owned by global elites, but guess what? None of us here are global elites. We're all in this together. Henry Kissinger of Rockefeller Foundation was quoted as saying, "We will use food for a weapon." So GMOs can definitely be classified as a bioweapon. It's another assault on our health. If anyone has any doubt, take a serious look at the documentary, The End Game, on YouTube, on the computer free. It's by Alex Jones. And everything in it is documented all the way back to eugenics around the 1940s. So this is a population reduction program that some people actually favor. So the Food Safety Modernization Act that was just passed in the Senate, the U.S. Senate, it dovetails with this because there is legalese in that says if you own heirloom seeds, you're committing a felony.
I'm going to have to ask you to summarize, please, Ms. Riley.
Okay. Right. I just want to say that our country is not a democracy. It's a representative republic. And thank you for being here and listening to us and keeping this matter alive. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Ms. Riley? No questions? Thank you. Next, we have Laulani Teo, followed by Vincent Dodge, followed by Justine Espiritu.
Aloha, council members, and thank you for allowing me to speak again. I think that you've already heard the reasons why GMOs need to be stopped. And in the meantime, while we're working on the way to make that happen, they need to, at the very minimum, be labeled. I think you've already heard those, and I think that all of you actually know what the right thing is. So what I'd like to talk to you about is about yourselves. At the last testimony that I gave on Bill 54, afterwards, listening to all of you speak, afterwards, I have to say that I felt a huge amount of empathy and aloha for all of you. What I heard were a lot of voices of people who, ironically, as you have so much power sitting here on the city council, the council of the city and county of Honolulu, you felt powerless to do the right thing. You know, knowing that real solutions are needed, it was clear to me, and especially, I don't mean to pick on you, Councilmember Garcia, but especially from what Councilmember Garcia said, it was clear that you folks feel powerless to do the right thing. There are many interests, many things obstacles that you face, and I'm standing here today, right now, asking you to simply do the right thing. It may be small, it may meet with difficulties, it may come across all kinds of problems, but please, even if you can't believe in the system you work for, you know, that it has all its problems, and, you know, I'll be honest with you, I don't believe in the system that you work for, but I do believe that every human being and all of you are where you are because of something that you believed. And you need to have faith in yourselves, and you need to have faith in the people. And you need to take the kuleana of the work that you're doing on the Aina of Hawaii and be true to Pono. And I think you know what that means. Mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for the testifier? No questions? Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. Vincent Dodge. Is Vincent Dodge here? Followed by Justine Espiritu, followed by Lauren Mochida. That's the end of our list of registered testifiers. If anyone else wishes to testify, you can line up on my left. Go ahead. Please proceed.
Hi, council members. My name is Justine Espiritu. Thank you for allowing me to offer testimony today in support of signage for genetically modified food. Although genetically modified crops are promoted as being designed for increased yields, drought tolerance, salt tolerance, and enhanced nutritional properties, my understanding is that in actuality these crops are engineered to be herbicide tolerant and insect resistant. Corporations like Monsanto design the crops as well as the chemical herbicides like Roundup that they are tolerant to, increasing their incentive to keep consumers in the dark about potential health risks. Genetic modification of crops simplifies and reduces the labor needs of farmers, but at a cost to the health of our bodies and environment. The chemicals these crops are designed to be sprayed with pollute our soil and water. These chemicals require those applying them to wear full bodysuits and respirators. These chemicals carry warning labels stating a taste of a drop can be lethal. The use of herbicides has increased by hundreds of millions of pounds since GMO's introduction in 1996. Along with GMO's perpetuating and increasing the use of harmful chemicals, scientists at the FDA have warned there has not been sufficient testing performed to ensure that genetic modification of crops itself is safe for humans when consumed. Could these modifications be responsible for the increase in food allergies and chronic illnesses? If policymakers are not requiring GMO manufacturers to prove their crops are safe with long-term studies before they put these in our food, as scientists urge them to do the testing, please allow us the tools to make informed decisions about what we eat and feed our children by encouraging of signage of GMO in foods. Let people be aware that this is a controversial issue. It's a health issue. Food products
that are labeled non-GMO or separated as GMO and non-GMO will result in people asking, what is GMO? That question isn't asked enough. People don't even know what it is, and so those questions need to start being asked. And if they're labeled, people know they need to ask that question.
I'm going to have to ask you to summarize, please.
Okay, thank you. Kauai and Maui have passed pro-labeling bills which allow this issue to be debated and encouraging everyone to educate themselves. Please do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? Nope. Okay, we have Lauren Mochida. Is Lauren here? Nope. She had to leave. Okay. That's the end of our list of registered testifiers. Go ahead, please proceed. State your name for the record.
Aloha, my name is Annie Sweet. Thank you for being here this afternoon and for listening to all of us. I don't usually spend my entire day here at the Hale, and certainly didn't expect to be here for going on 7 hours, but this is a very important issue for me, and so I've dedicated my day to it, and thank you for listening. I come to you as an advocate of small family farmers, as co-owner of 3 farmers markets, a consumer of fresh produce, and as a concerned citizen. It is imperative that GMO labeling is reinstated back into the HISC package. I strongly support the labeling of genetically modified organisms. I have a right to know what I'm eating and what I am feeding my family and I'm feeding my friends. Every independent study conducted of GMO impact and safety shows massive health and genetic problems included but not limited to reproductive, immunological, bacteriological, pathophysiological, and neurological disorders. By suggesting, as Mr. Perlak did earlier, that I only buy organic produce so that I know for certain that my food is free from genetically engineered materials, eliminates my right to support local conventional farmers utilizing good agricultural practices and greatly reduces the variety of locally grown fruits and vegetables that I can consume. Given that there are only a handful of organic vegetable farmers on Oahu, you are forcing me to purchase imported foods, increasing the already out-of-balance percentage of food that is 85% imported versus 15% grown in Hawaii. I strongly urge you to consider the rights of our community and to use your voice to reinstate GMO labeling back into 11339. We need a hero. I'd love to see you guys step up and be the hero today.
Thank you.
This deserves more discussion. Please stand behind the people who elected you today and allow this to go into the package.
Thank you. Thank you for
Mahalo.
your testimony. Members, any questions for the testifier? Not. Thank you. Next testifier, please state your name for the record.
My name is Pamela Boyer. Thank you, Chair Martin, and council members. Thank you for all the public service that you do. You're here all day just like us. I have been in the food industry for over 30 years. In 1986, I became aware of GMOs. The first GMO that I was aware of was created by Monsanto, and it was called the Flavor Savor tomato. It was a tomato injected with a fish gene. Why would you inject a tomato with a fish gene? Well, their reasoning behind it was so that tomatoes could grow longer in a colder season. But it tasted so bad and people didn't want to buy it because they knew what it was, that they took it off the market because financially it wasn't worth it. Are we eating tomatoes today that aren't labeled, that are injected with fish genes, injected with pig genes? Do we even know what we're eating today? Would you want to know? If you were a vegetarian, would you want to know if something's being injected with an animal? Or if you're sensitive or allergenic? Would you want to know that your food is being injected with BT poison, with viruses, with what you're eating? This is the things that they are injecting into your food that you are consuming. And this is not hybriding. Please know the difference between hybriding and GMO. GMOs are in more than 70% of our food system. It is not labeled. I believe that we have the choice to pick the foods that we want to eat. Frozen bread, really? You want that labeled? Calories, carbohydrates, weight, sugar, sodium, vitamins, ingredients, organic origin, so why not GMO? If the people that are creating these GMO foods are so proud of their product and stand behind their product, why do they not want it labeled? Why do they then not stand behind their product? If they think it's a great product, what are they afraid of? I stand behind the farmers markets that I run. I stand behind the local farmers here. And I don't understand why they will not stand behind their products to get it labeled.
I'm going to have to ask you to summarize, please.
Okay. That's it. I just really support labeling. I'm not saying no GMO foods. It's a part of our food system at this point. But I do say, as Americans, we have the right to know what we are eating. So please support labeling of this product.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? No questions, members? Next testifier, please, sir. Step forward. State your name for the record.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Daniel Bishop. I'm a taro farmer, Waihole, Oahu. Aloha Chair, council members. I'm here to ask for you to support and reinsert the language that would create labeling of genetically modified ingredients in our foods. I am a consumer. I'm a constituent. I believe that it is my human right to know what I am consuming. It is also my right as a consumer to make an informed decision onto what hard-earned money I'm spending on what product my hard-earned money is going to buy. Genetically modified foods is here, yes. You've heard a lot of testimony onto the Pandora's box that it could be. I'm not going to go there. Okay, I grow the best food in the world, taro. I'm a lucky guy. Tonight, I got to go home, harvest taro in the dark. Good thing I get moon. So if you guys want to come help me after this, because my day's not done. And I've been here since this morning. But I believe, again, it is my right to know what is in my foods. I want to address the labeling or the signage.
Go ahead.
Signage is okay. It's a Band-Aid to me. Signage is actually what it's going to do is put the cost on the grocer. But in order for the grocer to determine what aisle he's going to put the genetically modified foods in, he's going to have to know what are those ingredients, including whether or not it's genetically modified ingredients. So the biotech industry, who we're talking about right now, not just Monsanto, is going to have to give that information to the grocer anyway. Just like they're giving Japan the information that the papaya that we're selling to them now, because Japan has lifted the moratorium on importing our papaya, which has been genetically modified, that papaya is being labeled. So the industry is already doing it. And let's be honest, it's not going to cost the biotech industry a penny to label. They're going to pass it on to the consumer anyway. Their bottom line is profits. And if it's going to raise our cost a nickel, it doesn't matter to them.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please ask me questions. I've been doing this for a long time, and
members,
it's kind of crazy.
Any questions for the testifier? Councilmember Burke, go ahead.
Thank you. As you may know, with the legislature not moving on labeling,
right.
That's why I went with what they're doing, and they said signage. They've been tackling this, so the question to you is, albeit you believe it's the right to know and the right thing to do, would you at least find it that it would be worthwhile for this council to be in concert with the state legislature at this time that is moving with a conference draft to not label bread frozen or fresh, but put a sign up, albeit the onus on the grocer? That's what this floor draft would do. So would you concur that this effort of the floor draft I've introduced is a beginning and an opportunity to at least be in concert with the legislature from the get-go?
I think I understand what you're saying, and I do agree. I will agree that it is a step. When I started to get informed about genetically modified foods, there were very few people locally, and much less any legislators who were familiar with the truth and not the myths of genetically modified foods and what it can do. So yes, signage can start to open the door of the consumer who is so overburdened with the day-to-day life that they got to go to work and go home, and they don't care what the food is like because it's affordable. But when they start to notice, if that's all there is, a sign, which would be great, to point out the area of the grocery store that would, and then they would pick up the container and see, okay, this has genetically modified or soybean-like product. You know, it's not soybean when it's genetically modified. So that even is mislabeling, saying that it's soybean when almost all of soybean is genetically modified already. It should be soybean-like. Why not put that? You're putting soybean on the product, put soybean-like. So that would get the, anyway, it would start to educate the consumers that there is a difference. Hopefully, it would educate our legislators to the truth of the misinformation that is out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions for the testifier? No further questions. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming forward. Next testifier, please state your name for the record.
Aloha, my name is Lucas Miller. I'm an educator. I primarily teach environmental awareness. And I'd just like to tell you about my kuleana to children, that is to educating children. It's not only my right, but it's my responsibility. It's my privilege, and it's very important that I do the best that I can when I'm working with children, in educating them, in essentially offering them an opportunity to have choices in life, to be the best that they can be. So I got to be the best that I can be. I just wanted to ask you, what are you here for? What is your kuleana? It's been made obvious time and time again, the baloney, the BS that's going on within our government institutions, from the FDA, USDA, what have you. We've been infiltrated by corporations, and I don't think people are aware enough to stand up against them. We need people in your position to do something about it. We need some of you to be heroes, one of you to be heroes. I don't understand this system that's in place now. I can't keep up with all of your jargon and this process. It seems crazy to me, which I'm not even going to go there, but you have an opportunity. You have an obligation to the people of this place to do what you feel is right, what you know is right in your hearts. And if you don't know what's right, don't do anything. And if you're confused like I am, inform yourself, like I should do for myself. And it's been said multiple times now, but buying organic, why should we have to label something natural? Why does the natural, non-additive, non-adulterated, non-chemically engineered, whatever they're doing, why should that be labeled? Isn't that normal? Isn't that just standards? Isn't that whatever? I don't know how to say. Okay. I think anytime you adulterate,
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to summarize, sir.
Or you change something, you're responsible for letting people know what's been done. These corporations, biotech, whatever they're calling themselves, started out making war chemicals that are now producing food. They should be held responsible.
Thank you.
And it
Thank
should
you,
be
sir.
people like you
Sir,
to
thank
make
you.
that happen.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Any questions for the testifier? No questions? Thank you. Next testifier, please.
Hello again. Thank you, City Council members, for being here. It's been a long day. And thank you for hearing our testimonies this afternoon and this evening. Before I begin my testimony, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jim DiCarlo. I'm an educator here in Hawaii. I've taught at Hawaii Public Schools for a number of years, and now I'm the owner of a small business that teaches workshops in and out of schools on a variety of sustainable living topics. I teach kids and adults about things like compost, growing food, and basically living in harmony with nature. So I just want to give that background before I begin my testimony. I'm a concerned citizen and strongly support this resolution for labeling or signage. I'd like to see that reinserted back into the package. In the past 3 years, I've become much more concerned about my health and my diet. I've adopted regular exercise routine and have taken proactive measures to educate myself about what I eat and how it's produced. I feel great. However, I've recently learned that many of the foods that I eat are genetically modified or contain genetically modified ingredients. I've also learned that these GE foods may be putting the health of my family and me at risk. I want to get them out of my diet, but I can't because I don't know which foods contain them. Many Americans, including me, believe this information should be placed on a label or sticker on products that contain GE ingredients. Not knowing this information directly infringes on my freedom to make a choice about what I want to put into my body. The European Union, the largest ag region in the world, as well as Australia, Japan, Brazil, and New Zealand, have all passed laws requiring GM labeling. These other free first world countries have honorably respected their citizens' right to know what is in their food, and it's about time that we do too. The biotech companies and FDA say there's no need for us to be concerned, but my research has shown otherwise. I was alarmed when I learned about the minimal testing and potential risk of genetically modified foods. The biotech companies and the FDA claim that GM crops are no different from their non-GM counterparts. They say that GM foods pose no risk whatsoever to my health and that GM substances that remain in the food are broken down in the digestive system. They say that there's a consensus amongst the scientists. I've discovered credible studies and information that are in direct opposition of their claims. A lot of people here have demonstrated or talked about some of these dangers. I just want to include this one. A recent study done in 2011 titled Maternal and Fetal Exposure to Pesticides Associated to GM Foods in Eastern Townships of Quebec, Canada, conducted by the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, University of Sherbrooke, has proven that Bt toxin, which is used in GM corn and other crops, definitively makes its way into the blood supply, contrary to what biotech companies claim. The Bt toxin was found in the bloodstream of 93% of the women tested. The study explains that Bt toxin enters the body not only through direct consumption of GMOs, but also from consumption of meat.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just going to wrap up my argument with one more thing.
Real quick, please.
Okay.
We have a number of testifiers.
The precautionary principle states, when an activity raises threats of harm to human health or the environment, precautionary measures should be taken even if some cause and effect relationships are not fully established scientifically. The science shows there is plausible risk to the health of humans consuming GM foods. I challenge you, City Council members, to listen to your constituents who also believe the same and take precautionary measures of labeling GM foods.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? Nope. If not, next testifier, please step forward.
Good evening, Chair Martin and the rest of the council members. I would like to share a portion of this book, The Seeds of Destruction, written by a well-known researcher, F. Williams Engdahl, on how the definition of substantial equivalence of GMO foods came about. Surprisingly, it came from the highest level of government. By 1992, President George H.W. Bush was ready to open the Pandora's box of GMO. In an executive order, the president made the ruling that GMO plants and foods were substantially equivalent to ordinary plants of the same variety, such as ordinary corn, soybeans, rice, or cotton. The doctrine of substantial equivalence was the linchpin of the whole GMO revolution. It meant that GMO crops could be considered to be the same as conventional crops, merely because GMO corn looked like ordinary corn, or GMO rice or soybean, and even tasted more or less like conventional corn. And because it is a chemical composition of nutritional value, it was substantially the same as the natural corn. That determined that GMO plants were to be treated as substantially equivalent, ignore the quantitative internal alteration required by genetically engineer the particular crop. As serious scientists pointed out, the very concept of substantial equivalent was itself pseudo-scientific. The doctrine of substantial equivalent had been created primarily to provide an excuse for not requiring biochemical or toxicological tests. When the animals were fed the GMO corn, the pigs and the cows, the pigs couldn't conceive, or if they did conceive, the fetus was either deformed or died. Same with the cow. So you can see how bad the corn is and the soybean is, and yet they want to feed it to the American people. Think of your children down the road and your grandchildren. What kind of sickness will they have when this corn or soy is fed to your grandchildren and your children?
Thank you, Mr. Iseki.
So think about this when you vote. Have the labels put on all GMO food so that people can determine for themselves what is good and what is bad.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very
Iseki.
much.
Any questions, members, for Mr. Iseki? No questions? Next testifier. Please testifiers, please summarize your testimony.
Chair Martin and members of the council, mahalo for being here for a long day and considering testimony on this topic. My name is Dr. Cindy Goldstein with Pioneer Hybrid. I would like to point out I am not the Dr. Goldstein referred to by Lauren Pang. Pioneer Hybrid respectfully opposes the inclusion of a requirement for labeling of genetically engineered food products sold in Hawaii and the Hawaii State Association of Counties legislative package. Labeling of foods in the U.S. focuses on the ingredients and the composition of the food, not the process used to develop or grow a food product. Labels are in place to provide nutritional information for consumers looking at what nutritional value the food product has. There is widespread agreement among scientists through scientific studies and evaluation of data that biotech foods are safe. We've heard individuals mention other types of studies and conclusions, but in the world of science, we look at the weight of the body of the evidence, the repeatability of studies, and what the studies say in the majority of the studies. We look at all studies, but we have to look at what is the scientific conclusion and repeatability of those studies. We've had some discussion from Councilmember Berg about what will labeling look like. And we actually don't know. We're not sure what labeling would look like. Consumers throughout the state that wish to avoid eating genetically engineered foods do have an option. Organic foods are labeled as such. GMO-free foods are labeled as such. And I think what we may find is many food products labeled as may contain genetically engineered ingredients or something to that effect. And we'll be right back where we started with individuals that choose not to eat these foods selecting organic labeled or GMO-free labeled foods.
Thank
you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? No questions? Thank you. Next
Mahalo.
testifier. Please remember, testifiers, please summarize your testimony. We still have a number of people wishing to testify.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Kenneth Kamiya, and I'm a papaya farmer on the North Shore of Oahu. I have approximately 15 acres of papayas in production, and I grow the Laie Gold variety, which is genetically modified papaya that is resistant to the papaya ring spot virus. We have been growing and testing this variety for over 10 years and have had great results in terms of high demand and high customer satisfaction. On delivery days, my loyal customers are waiting for me at the stores to get first picking. Further, besides all the testing, trials, and approval by EPA, FDA, USDA prior to the deregulation of GMO papayas, our own experience has shown that GMO papayas are safe, delicious, nutritionally equivalent, and essentially no different from the non-GMO papayas. In many ways, it is superior because we now have a way to develop new and improved varieties. Example, my Laie Gold variety. Further, since its release in 1998, the majority of papaya grown in the state is transgenic or GMO. And if we estimate the number of servings consumed since that date, it would be close to 500 million, and yet we have not received a single adverse health reaction. Farming is a tough business in many ways. Storms, invasive insects, new diseases, and new weeds combined with rising costs of inputs of fertilizer, chemicals, labor, insurance, and burdensome regulations raises the question of the feasibility to farm. Adding our labeling requirements just adds costs and does nothing to improve our product. Therefore, I support Resolution 11339 CD1, which omits the labeling requirements for GMO product. GMO technology saved Hawaii papaya industry, so all Hawaii benefits with high-quality fruit. Our papayas are well-known, are world-renowned and accepted. We don't need to label it.
Thank you. Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? No questions. Thank you, sir. Next testifier, please state for your name for the record and please summarize your testimony.
Hi, my name is Lansing Kosh. I was raised on a farm and now I'm practicing civil engineering. Genetic engineering of our food supply is a recent technology. Unlike common misconception, crossbreeding and selective breeding is not the same as genetic engineering. Nature has spent a long time ensuring that we do not cross species boundaries when mating. In nature, a fish cannot mate with a corn whose offspring is capable of withstanding heavy doses of herbicidal spray. Many scientists, including the FDA's own, believe we do not know a sufficient amount about GMO to allow its full-scale production without check. Without the sufficient data, it is not conclusive whether GMO will have long-term and unexpected consequences. For these reasons, we expect the biotech industry and our government to exercise the precautionary principle with regards to engineered crops. But, understanding that we have passed the point of precaution, with over 75% of our food supply already contaminated, I asked for a labeling system. A labeling system to allow us the right to make informed decisions about whether we want to assume the potential risks of GMO and feed them to our family and support the technology with the almighty voting dollar. Many countries and regions around the world have outright banned GMO. Many more have labeling systems. Why do we as Americans not have the right to labels that many other countries have deemed appropriate? Even orange juice that is reconstituted has a label. Please support our right to choose, and especially in the GMO research capital of the world.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Members, any questions for the testifier? No questions. Thank you, sir. Next testifier, please, again, state your name for the record and please summarize your testimony.
My name is Mary Oyama. I came here to learn, but also to share. I'm the mother of 4 and grandmother of 3. The most important reason I'm here is because my youngest child has food-related allergies. It's a challenge to keep her at a healthy weight, and I learned many years ago that I have to read labels carefully. She's only 9 years old. Through the years, our family has slowly moved into the direction of organic and a GMO-free diet in support of our youngest child. I've been reading labels for a long time, and I find it frightening to see how the contents of packaged foods are changing. I had the opportunity to watch the last council meeting on November 15th, and it raised many concerns and questions regarding the safety of GMO. Because it was stated that all E. coli outbreaks were in organic food, I decided to research that because I am feeding my children organic food. And I found that that's not true. In 1993, the outbreak was from meat, not organic meat. 2006, the spinach. The E. coli that was found in spinach may have come from water runoff from a cattle farm. This issue obviously goes well beyond labeling, but labeling is a start. Biotech firms need to be held accountable for the technology that they've created and are now putting in the food market. People have a right to know. I'm not a scientist, environmentalist, or even an activist or an organic farmer, but I do support organic farming. I consider myself to be intelligent. I'm not a specialist, but something's not right here. As a parent and as a teacher, it's my responsibility to advocate for and to protect the keiki. And I place into your hands the responsibility to protect all the people, the Aina and the future generations to come. If any of you are parents, grandparents, if you have nieces or nephews, please think about what this means for them and the legacy that's being left behind. Please make decisions based that's in the best interest of the people in this state and not on dollar signs. Use wisdom that is based on facts. Require labeling of all GMO foods until an unbiased research can be produced that shows that they are 100% safe.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Members, any further questions? Any questions? No questions. Thank you for your testimony. Next testifier, please. State your name for the record and please summarize your testimony.
Good evening, Chair Martin and the City Council. My name is Mary Lax, and I had my prepared testimony, but listening to everyone's testimony, I sort of scribbled some things that I would like to mention. I'm testifying here on behalf of the most vulnerable of our society, with 90% of soy being genetically engineered, and that being one of the major ingredients in baby formula and in Ensure, which is a staple for the elderly. I feel a lot of concern, and I feel that they don't have a voice. They don't know what they're eating. I also would like to say that I resent the elitist attitude that if you don't want to eat GMOs, if you want to avoid them, that you just buy organic. Organic food is still at a higher price point. And, you know, people are just barely making it, you know. And you know, I don't appreciate hearing that. I'd like to reiterate what Ms. Moore said about traceability of GMOs. Why is the biotech industry so opposed to labeling? And the answer is because then a baseline is established and there is traceability for these products. With my written testimony that I submitted earlier, I hope you were able to read the attached letter from Patsy Mink from 2001 to a Big Island constituent. She's thanking her for writing, for expressing her opposition to genetically engineered food. They are addressing the fiasco with Starlink corn, where a genetically engineered corn that was not meant for human consumption polluted and infiltrated the processed food.
We did receive that letter, so if you can just conclude your testimony.
Great. So I strongly support whatever form it takes to label GMOs in Hawaii.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
testimony. Members, any questions for the testifier? No questions? Thank you. Thank you. Next testifier, please. State your name for the record and please summarize your testimony.
Hi, Council Chair and Council members. My name is Dino Kimoto. I'm president of Hawaii Farm Bureau Federation, and I'm also a farmer for 30 years. I own Nalo Farms. You know, just to go over this thing, okay, let's just take the last testimony, for example. If we're talking about food for our communities, okay, and we're talking about labeling within our communities, as the only state to label, if we went back, and I know Councilman Berg's draft doesn't include it this way, but if we were to require all the products across the nation that come here, and 70% of products in supermarkets are GMO, have GMO in there, okay? One, we have to monitor. We have to check every product to identify the GMO product, one. Two, to label, why would Coca-Cola or Ensure label just for Hawaii that it includes GMO? And how much do you think that would cost if they were just to label for Hawaii? I'll tell you what would happen. Half of these companies wouldn't send product to us. I mean, economically, it's not viable. To address Council Members Berg's point of doing it by rows at a supermarket, if you do that, okay, how do you monitor it? How do you know what is a GMO? The only way you're going to be able to do it is from a third-party source, right? So it costs money to do it. And who's going to pay in the end? It's going to be our consumers, one. And I mean, you talk about at a time when our communities cannot afford an increase in food prices. Every single proposal here today will increase the price of food across the board. And we have the highest food costs in the nation as it is. So we're going to add on 10, 15 more percent to change the labels.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Okimura.
Thank you.
Floor Leader Kachola. Hold on, Dean. He has questions for you.
So the extent of labeling based on your perception is all ingredients on that produce has got to be labeled. 10% this, 20% that. Is that how it's going to be done?
Well, not necessarily, but because it's an overall label of GMO, but you got to identify, for example, if a product has corn syrup in it.
Okay.
Okay, generally GMO. So you're going to have to make sure that they're using a GMO corn syrup or a non-GMO corn syrup. Right?
Yeah.
So if somebody says, I'm not using a GMO corn syrup, you're going to have to monitor it.
Will it be amenable when we say, like organic produce, they already labeled as organic, and the cost of organic is way higher than
I mean,
others.
I think it's a good way to go. It's
Yeah.
labeled organic.
So if they label organic, and we can say that all those not labeled organic is maybe
Might have
GMO, falls under that category. Is that okay? Then we simplify labeling.
Well, but there's other things. There's conventional ag too.
Ordinance here in the City Council, because I really don't think the state legislature is going to do it. They're still unaware, they're still ignorant of the situation. And so therefore, I know many people have offered their arguments already, but I'd like to say that the term that the GMO companies always use, substantial equivalence, has no scientific base. If the corporations had been forthright in the beginning and gone through all the procedures, including environmental impact statement, we wouldn't be where we are now trying to repair the damage. And the damage can be seen in the people of Hawaii, in the increased numbers of people with children who have special needs, who are autistic, who have cancer. I really ask you to take a look at this and not be arrogant about it.
Thank you.
Do your own research, please.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank
Members,
you.
any questions? No questions, members? Thank you. Next testifier, please state your name for the record and please summarize your testimony.
I guess it's good evening. My name is May Nakahata, and I'm the Government Affairs Co-Chair for the Hawaii Farm Bureau Federation. I come before you on behalf of our commercial ranchers and farmers and ranchers, and basically on this topic of labeling, it's not so much the label that we are concerned about as what's the true intent of the labeling. I commend the council for raising that question, what is the intent? And our farmers and ranchers very often find themselves having to defend their very basic growing practices that is used to grow the food and fiber that you use every day. Several years ago, there was an article that appeared in TV, in the media and so forth, about this new compound called dihydrogen monoxide and how harmful it was. There was an outcry that it should be labeled and banned. And in reality, it was a hoax out of a student out of North Carolina, and they were talking about water. And this goes back to where our concern is. My background is in biology. I'm comfortable with biotechnology and see it as a tool for our farmers and ranchers. And this is why the labeling has me concerned, because with the label, what will that mean to our farmers and ranchers? Will they have to defend something that has been proven to be safe? Another example is that, things like BT have been brought up, but even within organic practices, BT is a commonly used compound to provide control of pests in their crops. I'm sure before you, there are many issues facing this morning, the homeless and so forth. At the legislature, the same thing will happen. Is this the issue that we want to spend a lot of time on, or are there other more pressing issues? And in the case of Hawaii Farm Bureau, we are very concerned about those issues that affect the viability of our farmers and ranchers. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for the testifier? No? Thank you. Next testifier, please introduce yourself and please summarize your testimony.
Aloha, Alicia Maluafiti, Hawaii Crop Improvement Association, and I will speak first and foremost from the three things that are really important to people in my family: putting food on the table, paying the rent, and access to health care. And let me tell you why we don't care about so much the food labeling. People might think, yeah, I want my food label. I want to know if it's GMO or organic. But you know what? If that means that we're going to pay more for our food, we don't want the label. We're already struggling. First and foremost, my husband wants to get a job. So I think May brought it up. What's the priority for us here? West Oahu, I guess people don't have an issue with having to pay for food. But if you come into our district, District 1, West Oahu, Nanakuli, Maili Valleys, I have families struggling. We can't even afford half the things that most people can enjoy. Putting a label on our food is not a priority to us. You've heard all the arguments, the pros and the cons on each side of the equation for and against GMO labeling or organic labeling. But the bottom line is 13 million farmers use biotechnology. 90% of those farmers are in resource-poor regions, developing countries. We're not even talking about Americans. We are an arrogant people. You know what? It's easy to say no to GMO when your stomach is full. And that's what I get most of the time from people who are opposed to GMO. You can afford organic, you can afford a label, because that's all it is a marketing label, so that someone can charge a premium price. I don't need a label on our food. Okay? We just want cheaper food. We already pay 40% more than everybody else in the nation.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Councilmember Burke, Ms. Maluafiti, please hold your comments in the audience. I'm going to have you escorted out of the chambers.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity, and members. I'll be very brief. Have you seen the floor draft that I've put out there as a compromise?
I had an amendment to that. You know your little sign? You can put the sign up at the front of the store that says 75% of all the products sold in the store may contain genetically engineered ingredients. However, none of those ingredients have been found to be they've been found to be just as safe and healthy as organic. I mean, that's kind of what I thought of your. I understand you're looking for a compromise, and I appreciate that, but I don't think that's the answer.
Okay, mahalo.
One
Thank
side. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions, members? No further questions. Next testifier, please. State your name for the record, and please summarize your testimony. We really want to get to a discussion.
My name is Carol Okada. I'm with the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. I was a plant specialist from 1990 when this technology first took forward. We're still regulating it. For the purposes of this bill, we would be working with the Department of Health. Under the current fiscal constraints, though, we do have severe real concerns about these kind of bills that pop up in the legislature, because right now we're still hit with the 40% reduction in force. And I guess the concerns is more what is the priorities for me being in quarantine. It really is always what is the risk, and it really for us is very, it's not insignificant. We realize that people have concerns, but we're also dealt with inspecting for the invasive species, and invasive species is causing more harm, and in the millions, to most of the community and to our farmers and to the environment, and it's really where we want to put our resources to. We just came back from Guam last week. All the federal guys are here this week trying to get a grasp of what's going to come in as the military grows in the Pacific. But we're not just concerned about brown tree snakes. We're worried about mosquitoes. The guys who will be supposedly enforcing this labeling is Department of Health, the vector control people. And if you switch them and they don't catch the mosquitoes, because they're currently not even doing the mosquitoes, we don't have malaria, we don't have the good dengue carrier, then you're switching it to something that may cause harm in the future, but we're talking about a risk that we know will cause harm.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? No questions. Next testifier, please state your name for the record, and please summarize your testimony.
Aloha, Council. My name is Michael Kumukau Ohali, and there seems to be a disconnect here.
between the powerful and the powerless, whether we're talking, I'm in favor of the labeling of the GMOs, whether we're talking about Bill 54 or the labeling of GMO foods, the disconnect is twofold. The first part of the disconnect is when we heard about the poor people, it was them, those people, not our people, not us. When we're talking about GMO, somehow the us fell out of us. That's the first disconnect. The second disconnect, whether we're talking about Bill 54 or GMO, and this is for Nestor Garcia, who is a really good man, is that the Bible says, feed a man a fish, and you feed him for today. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him forever. What happens here is we sweep the knowledge of what is going on really away from public view. Whether we're talking about the poor and the homeless, it is convenient not to put them out on the streets, which we did not want to do, Stanley Chang. We're not proposing that they stay on the streets. We're proposing they stay in view, the view of people, to take care of the problem through knowledge. As I summarize, the knowledge for what we do, whether we choose to be given a GMO fish or be given the labeling to choose what we want to eat, is the substance of knowledge is the key to getting out of poverty and the key for health. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? Members, finally, our final testifier. Please come to the mic. Please summarize your testimony. Introduce yourself.
Chun James, I hope you give some credence to those of us who do not work for companies but come out because of our own personal conscience. Science is good, but science can also become a Frankenstein. Did you know that Monsanto, even though it's claiming that it wants to feed the world, but it has also developed Terminator seeds, which means that when you grow something, you cannot take the seed from that plant to grow again. So that is not sustainable. It means that it is going to place more pressure on farmers than it is trying to help to sustain it. That is a very big issue, the Terminator seeds. And that's why we're hearing things like heirloom seeds and this and that. But to me, this is just a procedure. All we're asking is that the other outer islands have already agreed that, hey, give us a chance to discuss this issue at the state capitol. So for the City Council of Honolulu to take it out and to not do it, it really is a roadblock. There is no question about that. All people want to know is that we want to know what food we're eating. We want to know truth in landing in place. So please, this is one bill or one suggestion to the state that does not cost you anything, because the decision really should be made there and higher up in Congress and with FDA.
Thank you, Ms. James.
Okay,
members, any questions for Ms. James?
So do it.
Okay, you had the last word. Thank you, Ms. James.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Okay, same to you. Thank you. Okay, that ends the list that ends the portion of our public testimony. Members, we're going to move to discussion. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? This will be the final one. I will not accept any more. Okay, please, short testimony.
Okay. I apologize. I just stepped in.
State your name for the record.
My name is Shelly Muneoka. I just wanted to testify quickly in support of a bill to require GMO labeling. And I just wanted to ask, what is the harm in labeling? If you're proud of your product, why not put it in there? What are you hiding, right? So it reminds me of this past year, there was legislation to legalize the sale of pa'iai, and the producers of the pa'iai were pushing for labeling to say, yes, we'll tell you where it was produced, when it was produced, who produced it. And to me, that sends a message, we're not hiding anything. And if there are issues that consumers raise, we're willing to be held accountable, and we're open. So I think really, whether you think GMOs are awesome or you think they're evil, I think we can all value the right to free, prior informed consent to what we put into our bodies. And I think today we're just asking an opportunity to ask for that at the state legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? Not that does end public testimony. We're going to move to discussion. Members, the discussion is for the current motion on the floor is to amend Resolution 11-339 CD1 to an FD1 as introduced by Councilmember Stanley Chang. Discussion, members.
Chairman.
Councilmember Garcia.
Chairman, in support of the floor draft 1 as proposed by my colleague Stanley Chang. Well, I guess I've heard it all, almost all tonight. Not just with this measure, but the previous measures today. Been labeled a good guy, bad guy. If we stayed longer here tonight, then I'd be labeled the ugly guy. So, good, bad, and the ugly. Anyway, there are other measures here in this package, and just for the record, I wanted to disclose Council Communications, both 304 and 305. Mr. Chairman, 304 deals with affordable housing. It's part of this package. It would call for a longer review period. This is something that's not new. We're resubmitting this again for the legislature's consideration. And as the executive director of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce, there are developers who might have a problem with me voting for this measure, but I'm voting for it nevertheless. Also, in Council Communication 305, again, as executive director of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce, we do have members who are involved in the issue of genetically modified organisms. But let me state for the record that the Chamber has not taken a position on either of these issues. The Chamber itself has not taken a stance on these issues. On the issue of GMOs, since that has drawn much of the attention, that's just too bad because there are other important issues in this package, but it seems to have been focusing only on this one issue. On the issue of GMOs, this is not new. It's been testified earlier today that perhaps the legislature has seen this in the last couple of 2-3 years. I'm familiar with this issue that goes back at least 10 to 12 years when I was in the legislature. And I heard from both sides on the issue of genetically modified organisms. And I believe then, as I believe now, it hasn't changed my mind. I don't think this council should commit itself right now to this issue of labeling or signage or whatever it is that we would like to see before the consumers when it comes to choosing between GMO or any other type of food that is available for their purchase. It's not to say that I'm open, though, to listening to more of the evidence as being proposed by those who feel that this is something that we should put into our package. And let me say this. In the other business that I do, which is not talked about much, is that I am a safety officer for men in a construction firm. One of the issues that I had to deal with most recently was the exposure of my men to a termite insecticide. My men lay concrete foundations for many of the residential homes in District 1. My men came to me with a concern. They feel that they're being overexposed to a termiticide. Okay? I take it very seriously when my men have an issue when it comes to their safety. So I sat down with the general contractor as well as the company applying the insecticide, and I said, I have a concern here, and I want it addressed. And out of that came a very expensive study that proved that in this instance, the men were safe. So, I say that because I want people to understand that even though I'm taking a position opposite of them in this particular issue when it comes to GMO, I have not shut my eyes when it comes to people's safety. And so I am willing to listen to more of what you have to say on this position. Call it ignorance. Don't call it arrogance. But I'm willing to listen. It's just that at this juncture, I've yet to hear what I think is going to be conclusive evidence for me to change my mind on this particular issue at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Members, any further discussion? Any further? Councilmember Berg, go ahead.
I just want to say this, which I'll try to be brief. I, for one, am not a label reader. I, for one, applaud science, and I love Twinkies and all the things I'm supposed to not eat. But this goes beyond my own personal choice, members. It's for those that really are here vocalizing, and I look at this basic, this stack here, I'd say 9 out of 10 are just saying they want the right to know. And I look at our neighbor island friends, and they just want the right to know. And I see this as an opportunity with my floor draft 1 to look at the fact that the legislature can't even get frozen bread with fresh bread. That's a very simple decision-making process. And so the legislature for years has been chewing on this and said, maybe we have a solution with just adding a sign. This table's got frozen, this is not frozen. With that said, I think that when one of the testifiers said, hey, you know, you come into a store and it says 99.99% of all our stuff may or may not have GMOs in it, but aisle 9 doesn't. That's just a simple acceptance that we have a large constituency in each one of our districts that is clamoring and begging and pleading that this is probably one of the most important things in their lives. They are label readers, and they are merely asking for disclosure. And I'd like to add this if I can. So it took some deaths when people had allergic reactions to peanuts, and now I think it's even a federal law. You know, you got to have, at the schools, you got to let every child know if that may have peanuts in it, because we had wine. If you recall, we had an issue with wine. I think there were some deaths with wine, and then they found out there was a chemical in red wine or something and for a preservative, and they had the federal government intervene to protect lives. Whether or not some scientist says GMO isn't harmful versus a scientist who says it is or isn't, this is just erring, or you know, rather on the safe side. So, you know, my members have had a long day here, and this is not the opportunity for me to go about this. But I wanted to let you members that I didn't want anyone here backed into a corner with a black and white. And that's why I offered this FD1, because I'm looking at the action of the legislature to look at signage, and I thought I would help entertain that. That bill is Senate Bill 1086. It's in conference committee, and so with that said, members, please consider the fact that if the FD1 that I've introduced does get passed by us, I'm going to then ask that we offer that the entire councils revisit this with a special meeting so that they tell the legislature that this is so important. Don't punt. Don't keep putting this off. Please let the people have a right to know. And I understand the ramifications, Chair, members, with labeling being different from signage. And rather than try to push for labeling, I want to have the signage. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you, thank you. Members, any further discussion? Councilmember Gabbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, as Councilmember Garcia mentioned, this package deals with 14 different measures, many of which have a lot of substance and are dealing with very important issues. I'm going to oppose the proposed FD1 based on another bill that another proposal that has been deleted in this FD1, and that is a proposal dealing with, also dealing with labeling products that are grown in or produced in Hawaii as to whether or not they are 100% or blended with products from other regions or countries. And the concern here is that our local farmers work really hard to produce their product, and to be able to say that it's 100% Hawaii grown or produced is incredibly important to them and being proud of what they've done, as well as to their livelihood. So because this is being taken out, I can't support the FD1. Thank you.
Okay. Floor Leader Cachola.
On the FD1 introduced by Councilmember Chang, I'll be supportive of that, because the way the labels, the requirement is this. They are now going to increase Kona coffee from 10% to 75%. making the product very cost prohibitive. Now, on the other 25%, which is going to produce a blend, if they say 10% is Colombia coffee, 10% or 5% is Brazilian coffee or whatever, and they have produced a lot of labels. But there are times when coffee from other countries cannot be available because of disaster or whatever. Will they now be in violation of the disclosure because they cannot get any coffee from this country? We are now going to put them in a situation that they are violating the law. Even if they wanted to get coffee from those places, they cannot. That's the danger of trying to come up with labeling in an exact way, like 10% this, 5% that, and if you did not have that kind of mix, you're in violation. And therefore, because of that concern, I'll be supporting the FD1 introduced by my colleague, Councilmember Cheng.
Any further discussion, members? Councilmember Kobayashi.
I don't know at what point to talk about a disclosure, but
Yes.
there are legislative matters in the package that deal with lifeguards, and I'm a non-paid board member of the Hawaii Lifeguard Association.
Right.
Thank
We
you.
have your disclosure on record. It's
Thank
so
you.
noted. Thank you, Councilmember. Any further discussion, members? Okay, members, any objections to the motion to amend Resolution 11-339 CD1 to the FD1 introduced by Councilmember Stanley Chang? Any objections? One objection? Two objections. Two objections. Noting two objections. Any reservations, members? Noting no reservations, Resolution 11-339 CD1 has been amended to a CD1 FD1. Okay, members, before I call for the vote, any further discussion? Councilmember Chang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've been here a long time, so I'll be brief, but I did want to acknowledge all of the testifiers who both submitted oral and written testimony today in voicing their concerns, their opinions, their viewpoints, both for and against the GMO bill, as well as all the other bills that are part of the HSAC package. What I want to remind everybody is that inclusion or exclusion from the HSAC package does not mean that the bill either passes or does not pass. The state legislature is the organization that's being lobbied in the HSAC package. So all of these bills are still possible, can all still be introduced at the state legislature by any member of the state legislature. And I would encourage every testifier, everyone who cares about any of these issues or any issues at the state to contact their senators and representatives to advocate to introduce any bills on any side of any of these issues. The city and county of Honolulu is just one voice in the Hawaii State Association of Counties, which is just one voice among the many stakeholders that appear before the state legislature. I'll just briefly address the GMO issue. You know, one thing that I want to really highlight is that one theme that I've heard over and over again is that consumers should have choice in the types of products that they buy. And indeed, we have choice in a number of different aspects. Some people who are lactose intolerant, for instance, have a choice of buying lactose-free products. There are people who don't consume alcohol as part of their lifestyles, and there are a number of alcohol-free products. You know, without governmental intervention, the market has provided for a number of different products in a number of different categories. And the one thing that I've never heard from any of the testifiers today, especially those who advocated for increased choice in the GMO field, is a lack of access to GMO-free products. I can personally attest to the several purveyors of natural foods in my district, from Kales to Whole Foods to Umeke Market. Around the rest of the island, there's Down to Earth, there's other locations for Umeke Market. Organic and GMO-free foods are widely available in clubs, in supermarkets, and even in convenience stores. If you live in a truly remote location, there's a large number of purveyors of organic products online that would be happy to satisfy all of your GMO-free needs. And so until it's clear that people realistically do not have that choice, it seems to me that people do have the choice in whether or not to purchase GMO or GMO-free products. And that's why I'd like to ask all the members of the council to join me in supporting 11-339 CD1 FD1, which would, I think, not hinder the consumer's right to choice in the kinds of products that they buy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further discussion? No further discussion. Member, we're going to take a short recess. We have a technical flaw.
Keikis in the park, the sun is setting. Mama's in the kitchen, beef stews are cooking. Papa's busy making room for all the presents, 'cause everybody knows that Santa's coming soon. People celebrating, ukuleles playing, Auntie Alice doing her favorite hula. Uncle Kimo's feeling good, pass out in the corner. It's Christmas time again. Aloha. With mistletoes and twinkle toes, runny nose and no more snow, dogs and trains and chocolate candies all in a row. Good luck wishes, good night kisses, dirty dishes, Merry Christmas, everybody knows. Keikis in the park, the sun is setting. Mama's in the kitchen, beef stews are cooking. Papa's busy making room for all the presents, 'cause everybody knows that Santa's coming soon. With mistletoes and twinkle toes, running nose and no more snow, dogs and trains and chocolate candies all in a row. Good luck wishes, good night kisses, dirty dishes, Merry Christmas, everybody knows. People celebrate.
Advised me we need to take one more additional vote on a motion to amend. So the motion will be the motion to amend Resol 339 CD1 to the FD1 just adopted. Just to correct a technical flaw which will allow us to get to the FD1 version as introduced by Councilmember Chang. So any objections to that motion, members? I know you all look confused, so am I. Any objections, any reservations? One objection or reservation? One objection noting an objection from Councilmember Berg. Okay, finally, any discussion before we take the vote on the motion to adopt? Resolution 11-339, CD1, FD1. Any further discussion? The Council Member Changs. Any further discussion? Okay, members, any objections on the motion to adopt? Noting one objection from Council Member Burke. Any reservations, members? Noting one reservation from Council Member Gabbard. Committee Report 347 and Resolution 11-339, CD1, FD1 has been adopted. So your testimony, if that's what your particular interest is to ask for the Council's consideration to reinsert that through a further amendment.
And in order for such legislation to be considered, this Council would have to, somebody here would have to make a further motion so as to amend the HSAC legislative package that's before us.
To re-include that particular matter.
It because it's already been taken out.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It is imperative that GMO labeling is reinstated back into the HSAC package.
Okay, Vice Chair Anderson for the motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any objections, members? Okay, the meeting is adjourned
Mr. Chair,
until Wednesday.
Got to say when we're adjourning until.
Okay, go ahead.
Do we have to?
What's that?
Do we have to adjourn?
Yes, please.
You all look like
you have
such a nice
objections,
sign.
huh?
I move that the Council stand adjourned until Wednesday, January 25th, 2012 at 10 a.m.
Happy holidays, everyone.
I did not
The meeting stands adjourned. You seconded already.